Chapter 1723. Hey! What if someone happens to advance in the middle of the battle? Yeah, advance. That's really amazing. Young Master Ding smiled and said, but since it's a competition, of course we have to continue until the winner is decided. So, the person who advanced deserved to be attacked by the opponent. If there were no proper measures, the person who advanced after much difficulty might face being beaten up or even worse, being interrupted and going berserk. That was too dangerous. Young Master Ding blinked innocently. Who would advance in the middle of the competition? Then no matter how you advance, you need a buffer period, right? In other words, you might feel that you're about to advance. You can drag it out until the end of the competition and find a quiet place to advance. That's not necessarily true. Arbor snorted. After drinking the spirit tea, if you really want to advance, you won't be able to resist at all. Just like Qi Xianxian last time, didn't she have to meditate and enter the state immediately after advancing? Arbor thought about it. For safety's sake, she was determined not to cheat her teammates. She still took out a bunch of defensive rings from her pocket and distributed them to the other 7 people. If you advance later, remember to activate a few more defensive barriers around you. Don't embarrass me and get killed when you advance. Everyone took the 5 or 6 defensive rings that Arbor gave them and looked at her in confusion. Young Master Ding was also confused. His eyes lit up as he stared at her and asked, Jojo, you sell defensive rings? You're the one who sells defensive rings. Your whole family sells defensive rings. But who would be able to pull out 30 to 40 defensive rings in one go? They're all low-grade spirit tools. They're not very useful. However, if everyone here activated 3 layers of defensive spirit tools, at least a level 1 spirit master wouldn't be able to break through the 3 layers of defense even after 2 or 3 days of hammering. Everyone looked at her in confusion. They silently looked down at the 5 or 6 defensive rings on their palms, then looked at the rings on the others' palms. Junior Sister Qiao's way of doing things was a little unsightly, wasn't it? They felt like they had gotten to know a very impressive person. Jojo, you gave us the defensive equipment. What about you? Qi Xianxian asked worriedly. I still have a lot. Arbor took out 7 or 8 more for them to see, ignoring the slightly twisted expressions on their faces. There were more than 100 defensive rings in the pile of trash that Senior Giant Ape had given her as a tribute. Oh, no, it was the trash that Senior Xuanji had tricked over a dozen generations of disciples to obtain. There were simply too many defensive rings. Although she looked down on her own eggshell defensive ring, it had to be said that the defensive ring Mo Lian made was of a much higher level than this trash. The team members who were picking up trash silently put away their defensive rings and calmly put away their water bottles into their inner worlds. Then, they sat down beside or behind Arbor. Duanmu Qing and the other 2 naturally sat beside Arbor. Mada looked like an abandoned puppy. He looked at them pitifully and reluctantly followed his teammates to sit in the back row of Arbor's group. The 2 groups began to discuss how to cooperate in the battle later. Young Master Ding smiled and said, when it's your turn later, your names will appear on the stone crystal screen. Chapter 1724. At the same time, I'll also call out the names to remind you. Just pay attention. There's nothing else to do now, so you can rest for a while. Arbor glanced at him indifferently. The words, "Why aren't you leaving yet?" were clearly written in her eyes. Young Master Ding laughed. He supported his chin with one hand and tilted his head to look at her. I'm not leaving. You haven't forgiven me yet. If you do, I'll leave. Forgive your sister. Arbor rolled her eyes at him. She really didn't want to say anything more to this strange person. Young Master Ding was probably used to this little guy's lukewarm attitude, so he didn't mind. He just glanced at her with a smile and didn't say anything else. He didn't say anything and just sat obediently beside her to watch the competition. Although Arbor was a little depressed, she didn't chase him away. He was the manager of this underground fighting arena. He could stay anywhere. Ah, Chio. Arbor raised her hand to rub her nose and tilted her head in surprise. For the past few days, she kept feeling that someone was talking about her behind her back. Among the group of short mentors who were sitting sneakily in the audience seats. One of the mentors, who had a square face and looked very serious, coughed lightly and whispered, "Aren't the requirements too high for the rules we set?" Excluding support and mystic beasts, the only things that could be used were weapons and fists. Hi. How is that possible? The short mentor, Zhou Danjin, smiled wretchedly. It doesn't exist. The requirements are too high. After discussing it, we set the requirements according to the standards that they can currently reach. Wei Wei nodded and thought to himself, that's right. It's time to let that arrogant little girl suffer a setback. Things in this world can't always go smoothly. After suffering 2 losses in the arena, she knew that there was always someone better than her. Zhou Danjin grinned. Just watch. We're also trying to figure out the level of the children's martial strength, where the bottom line and upper limit are. It'll be easier for us to teach them all kinds of knowledge in the future. Zi Yunqi's section break. A blazing light suddenly rushed out from the 15th floor of the Tower of Punishment. This terrifying pitch-black flame rushed out in clusters and suddenly raised the 15-story tower to the ground. At this time, not to mention the talisman array, even the outer wall of the 15th floor of the tower had been burned and annihilated by the black fire. If one looked at it from the outside, they would find it very strange. This Tower of Punishment was floating in an unknown space. Aside from the top 2 floors that were intact, from the 15th floor onwards, every floor was broken. Every floor below seemed to have been ruthlessly looted, and the situation was extremely miserable. Mo Lien pursed her thin lips and arrived at the entrance of the 16th floor. She happened to bump into He Qin, who had a strange expression on her face. Ma Yingchen glanced at Prince Mo and looked him up and down. Yo, you've changed your clothes. As he spoke, he stared at him with a malicious expression. What did you see in the 3rd stage just now? I didn't see anything, Mo Lien replied expressionlessly. Impossible. He Qin pursed his lips. You don't look like someone who has no desires. The 15-story talisman array tested a person's greed for money, power, and beauty. Therefore, the last stage of the talisman array would definitely produce a bunch of stunning beauties. Look at you. You've changed your clothes. You definitely couldn't control yourself just now. Chapter 1725. Hu Shiqin snorted. I'll definitely tell the little guy later. At the mention of Jojo, Mo Lien's expression became even stranger. Wifey, wifey. As the two were chatting, they heard a ghastly wail and howl, which made both Hu Shiqin and Mo Lien frown at the same time. Turning around to look, even Hu Shiqin's calm expression could not help but twitch her mouth. Dao Wuji, with a head of messy hair, ran out shirtless in a pair of shorts. He first looked around, then slapped his thigh and shouted, "Where's my wifey? Where's my beautiful wifey? Why are they all gone?" Needless to say, if Mo Lien had not destroyed the talisman array on the 15th floor, this guy would probably have sunk into the land of beauties forever. Mo Lien could not be bothered with him and turned around to head to the 16th floor. Hu Shiqin followed behind him and persistently asked, "Did you see Jojo? What did you do to Jojo?" "I threw him out," Mo Lien said expressionlessly. "What? Hu Shichen looked at the guy whose back was facing her, dumbfounded. You said you threw Jojo out. How could you bear to do that? He's not the real Jojo, he's just a shadow to confuse people. Mo Lien said nonchalantly. But you saw Jojo, you. Could you do it? Hu Shichen saw his side glance and shot her a murderous look, her voice could not help but slowly lower. Then how did you pass the second talisman array test? Who did you see? The second talisman array tests one's desire for power, which should not be difficult for Prince Mo. Who knew that Prince Mo was slightly startled, then lowered his eyes and said lightly, You might not believe me. Go ahead. Ma Yingchen was slightly taken aback. Then, she saw Prince Mo step onto the end of the 16th floor's passageway and into the built-in mechanism tower. As soon as he walked in, the small mechanical tower began to move upwards until the mechanical sounds reached its peak. Only then did it stop. The small door of the mechanism tower opened, and the few of them walked out. They saw that the guards of the Luo brothers and above were all waiting for them at the entrance. Limitless Blade walked up and said, Why are you all here? The Luo brothers glanced at his disheveled appearance with obvious disdain. They snorted coldly and said, Of course we're waiting for boss. Do you think we're waiting for you? As the Tower Guardians, they could freely enter and exit the various floors of the Tower of Punishment without having to go through the test of the 15-floor tower array. Therefore, when the Luo brothers saw that Mo Lien, Yu Ying, and Chen Dao Wuji had entered the formation, they had been waiting for Prince Mo at the entrance of the 16th floor. Boss, how are you? Did you get hurt in the pagoda formation? The Luo brothers asked with concern. Mo Lien shook her head. It's nothing serious. The Luo brothers immediately smiled and said, As expected of our boss. You passed the 15-floor tower array so easily. Little Tai Sui said coldly, So what if you passed a small tower array? What's there to congratulate you for? There are still 2 more difficult floors ahead waiting for you. When the time comes, if you can't pass them, you'll die. Mo Lien ignored the child with the strange voice. Her gaze fell on the 7 doors in front of her. Other than the slightly different carvings on the doors, she could not see anything different. Chapter 1726. Feng Chen silently glanced at Prince Mo. You haven't said it yet. Prince Mo said, You might not believe me, but he didn't say anything else. You're itching to know what this brat wants to say. Feng Chen felt like she had been played by the crown prince. Prince Mo calmly looked at the 7 doors in front of him and frowned. I'll go to the first door. The patterns on the 7 doors were all different. Upon closer inspection, they seemed to be the patterns of different fierce beasts. The door Mo Lien chose had a blue-eyed 3-headed dog engraved on it. At first glance, it gave off the feeling of an ancient fierce beast. Dao Wuji glanced at it, and his heart pounded. This? Can't we enter the same door? Little Tai Sui looked at him with disdain. Scared? If you're scared, then don't come. You've already skimmed 3 floors in a row. You should be satisfied. If that brat hadn't destroyed the entire talisman array with holy fire, Dao Wuji wouldn't have been able to come out in less than 30 years. If he could, little Tai Sui would take his surname. This brat's words were too hateful. Although what he said was true, Dao Wuji was the sect master of the Extreme Saber sect. Did he have no shame? Little Tai Sui coldly glanced at Dao Wuji. It's your turn to choose. Dao Wuji's body trembled, and he inexplicably felt a chill. The kid walked from the first door to the last one, hesitating and not knowing what to do. At this time, Xing Chen had already chosen the second door. There was a lightning eagle engraved on it. Have you chosen yet? Little Taisue's childish and cold voice sounded again. It impatiently said, "You're so wishy-washy, just like a sissy. Hurry up and choose." After being scolded by little Taisue, Dao Wuji hurriedly looked from beginning to end. Finally, he stood in front of the seventh door. There was a large yellow cat engraved on the seventh door. It looked quite docile. Dao Wuji turned to look at little Taisue's expressionless face. He lightly coughed and said, I'll choose this one. Let me remind you. What you choose may not be what you see on the door. Hearing this, Infinite Blade shrugged casually. Don't think that I'll back down just because you said that. I'll take it. If you want to trick me, you'll have to train for a few more years. Little Taisue glanced at him and said in an indifferent voice, You've probably already guessed that there's a beast behind each door. It could be a Xian beast, a spirit beast, or even a divine beast or a saint beast. That will depend on your luck. If you were to encounter Xian beasts or spirit beasts, it would naturally be a piece of cake for him to kill them within minutes. If they were unfortunate enough to encounter a divine beast, perhaps it would be a high-level divine beast, then they would have a good fight. As for the holy beasts, whether or not they would be able to leave this place was another matter altogether. Even an immortal venerable might not be able to defeat a sacred beast that was in the middle of its growth stage. One could imagine that if one were to accidentally open the door of a sacred beast, one could only chuckle and bear a grudge. Everlasting Blade immediately switched to another door. He switched to the door with a plant carved on it. Compared to animal-type beasts, plant-type flowers and trees were definitely slightly easier to deal with. The door in front of him had a large, gorgeous morning glory carved on it. Although its gaping mouth didn't look very friendly, but what kind of danger had he, Dao Wuji, not been afraid of? Humph. Dao Wuji definitely didn't believe that he was the only one with the worst luck among the three of them. Chapter 1727. In these 7 doors, there is an ancient super holy beast at the early stage of maturity, little Taisue said calmly. Dao Wuji's eyes widened. What? Do you know what an ancient holy beast at the early stage of maturity means? Even 10 immortal supremacies would have a hard time defeating it, let alone a spiritual supremacy like me. Are you kidding me? Little Taisue shook his head, as if saying, Do I look like someone who would joke with you? However, this holy beast wandered out on its own many years ago and never came back. The Tower of Punishment can't capture its aura, so it has been allowed to wander outside for so many years. To put it simply, one of the 7 doors is actually an empty door. Dao Wuji's eyes lit up. Oh my, is that so? There's an empty door. Dao Wuji hurriedly ran around and looked around. Finally, after a moment of hesitation, he decided to stand in front of the big yellow cat. Since it was a holy beast that could wander outside, it definitely couldn't be a plant. Unless it was holy wood, there was no other way for a plant to reach the level of a holy beast. It would be good enough for a plant to reach the level of a divine beast at most. And it wanted to reach the level of a saint. Impossible, impossible. Dao Wuji looked at the big yellow cat carved on the door. On the surface, it looked quite docile, but could it actually be? It was a ferocious beast. Besides, little Taisue had just said that the beast inside might not be the one carved on the door. What if the 3-headed hound was hiding behind the big yellow cat's door and waiting for its prey to come to it? Wouldn't that be a huge loss for him? No, he had to do the opposite. As the saying went, luck was always given to those who were prepared. He decided. Little Taisue couldn't stand seeing that he was going to change doors again. It threw 3 palms at the 3 doors in front of it. The doors in front of Mo Lien, He Shichen, and Dao Wuji opened at the same time. A suction force suddenly pulled the 3 of them in. The 3 of them raised their eyes and looked forward. Separated by each other's doors, their faces revealed expressions of indifference, slight astonishment, and shock. As soon as Everlasting Blade entered the room, he heard an ear-piercing gurgling sound. He was almost hit by a stream of green mucus. He looked up with a serious expression and saw a big morning glory that reached the roof of the house. It was looking at him with bad intentions. Suddenly, the petals opened and spat out a mouthful of sticky liquid. The green mucus was dodged by Everlasting Blade and fell to the ground. Everlasting Blade saw a large hole in the ground that had been corroded by the sticky liquid. Fuck! He couldn't help but curse out loud. That little Tai Sui really wasn't a good thing. How wicked! He was directly thrown into this house. Clearly, the beast engraved on the door was a tame yellow-spotted cat, but what was waiting for him inside the door was a big morning glory. Life is full of surprises. As for Yuan Shiqin and Imo Lian, they were also surprised. Yuan Shiqin had clearly chosen a thunder eagle to enter, but inside the house was a big yellow cat that was curled up in a corner and looking at him pitifully. When the big cat saw someone enter, it immediately hugged its head with its paws and rubbed against the corner of the wall with a pitiful and aggrieved expression. Yuan Shiqin looked at it in surprise, and his lips twitched. Chapter 1728. It can't be, right? Wasn't this big yellow-spotted cat the one that Dao Wuji wanted to fight? How did he end up in his room? Hu Shiqin circled around this big yellow-spotted cat and confirmed once again that this big cat didn't have any attack power at all. It was just a high-level mystical beast. Although it could be considered a ferocious beast outside, in his hands, it was just a small mystical beast. If he really wanted to kill it, it really would be as easy as blowing off dust. Hu Shiqin only took 2 steps forward and slowly raised his hand. That big cat tactfully laid down along the corner of the wall and waved its paw at him in a friendly manner. Mo Lian's side was even more strange. After he looked around the room, he didn't find any trace of a mystical beast. Thinking about what little Tai Sui said before, Prince Mo's expression became somewhat subtle. It seemed that he had walked into dog shit luck and stepped on an empty door. Was this called heaven-defying luck? Even if Dao Wuji heard this, he might not necessarily believe it. Dao Wuji was currently bitterly fighting with that big morning glory. If he knew now that Mo Lian had broken through an empty door and Hu Shiqin had attacked a small mystical beast, he would most likely vomit blood. It was truly infuriating to compare oneself to others. Dao Wuji could only leap up and use all 18 classes of martial arts to deal with this morning glory in front of him. Right now, he could only hope that this big morning glory that could spew venom didn't have that much venom in its stomach. Enough is enough. When Prince Mo pushed open the door and walked out, he just happened to see Hu Shiqin walking out with a small yellow-spotted cat. That small cat docilely leaned against his feet with a "I'm very obedient, very sensible" look on its face. Seeing this, Mo Lian couldn't help but feel somewhat astonished. Could it be that Hu Shiqin had encountered such a small cat that had no fighting power at all in this door? Apart from being a pet, what else could this small cat do? If you counted on it to bite or tear people apart, it would probably kick this coward far away with a single kick. The tests of these 2 doors were simply non-existent to Mo Lian and Hu Shiqin. The 2 of them came out for a while before they realized that Dao Wuji had not come out yet. Behind each closed door, there was no sound at all. Mo Lian and He-Chin naturally could not hear that idiot Dao Wuji's cries for help from behind the door. The 2 of them waited for a while, but Dao Wuji did not come out. They could not help but look at each other silently. "Boss, why don't we go to the top floor first?" The Luo brothers went up and asked. Who knew how long he would have to wait for this Dao Wuji? If he hadn't come out of the door yet, then he must have been entangled by some giant spirit beast or divine beast. Whether or not he could come out was another matter altogether. If he didn't come out, boss couldn't just wait endlessly. To think that this fellow had seriously chosen the door 3 times in the beginning. In the end, Mo Lien nodded calmly. He had only interacted with Dao Wuji for a few days. There was no deep relationship between them. Leaving him alone on the 16th floor did not make much of a difference. Everyone happily left Everlasting Blade, who was locked in a fierce battle with the Morning Glory, and walked up the passage to the 17th floor. Poor Dao Wuji was currently entangled by a few roots and could not free himself. Just as the big Morning Glory opened its petals and the green venom was about to arrive. Chapter 1729. In a hurry, Dao Wuji made a prompt decision and chopped off half of his hair. Rolling on the ground, he stood up with a whoosh. Just as he was about to open the door and escape, the big Morning Glory behind him seemed to be enraged as it let out a hissing sound. Suddenly, it opened its huge mouth and shot out a large ball of green mucus, which sprayed towards Dao Wuji. Limitless Blade was unable to dodge this time and was sprayed head-on. He immediately cried out tragically, "I'm finished." However, Dao Wuji, who was sprayed with this large ball of venom, did not die on the spot. Instead, he felt a chill on his face and body. He carefully opened his eyes and found that he was wrapped in a large ball of green mucus and hung upside down on one of the branches of the big Morning Glory. Hanging upside down like this, the blood in his head was about to rush up. Moreover, he glanced and found that he was not the first pitiful person to be hung up. Before him, there seemed to be many people hanging upside down on its branches. It was just that when the fight started, Dao Wuji did not notice this at all. Now that he looked again, he saw that those people had already turned into hundreds of thousands of dried corpses in the green mucus. It was obvious that they had become food for this man-eating flower. Could it be that he would also become food for this man-eating flower? Would he become a dried corpse? Dao Wuji struggled to break free from the mucus, but it was to no avail. After spending so much effort and not being able to leave, Dao Wuji could not help but give up. Hanging upside down on the stem of the flower, he started to think about life that he would not normally think about. Shantian Prefecture's Wonka City, Qianluo Underground Arena. The atmosphere at this time was already very intense. At this time, the Qianluo Underground Arena had opened 2 levels of battle rings. On the lower level, there were 2 contestants who were engaged in a normal battle. In the middle of the arena, the upper level of the arena rose up and a champion stood on it. The guarding match and the normal match were going on at the same time. When the fight was exciting, there were thunderous cheers coming from all directions. They only hated that their parents did not give them more eyes. All kinds of profound skills crisscrossed in front of his eyes, and the 5 spirits appeared simultaneously. Sometimes, the battles on the upper and lower levels were too intense, causing his eyes to not be able to see enough. Just now, after one of the champions who had defended until the 9th round was kicked off the stage, that person became the new champion. He had a badge hanging on his chest, and his chin was raised high and proud. However, in less than 3 rounds, he was beaten to death by the waves behind him. Arbor sat and watched for a while. She saw that they were all one-on-one matches, but in her opinion, they were not that exciting. Therefore, after watching for a while, he lost interest in continuing to watch. Arbor closed his eyes and leaned against the stool. He was a little drowsy. In the past, people who were used to taking afternoon naps every day had been training every day. How could they have time to slack off? Half an hour later, just as Arbor was about to fall asleep, he heard a series of screams. The crowd in the underground fighting ground seemed to have been ignited by something as they instantly burst into an uproar. Arbor opened his eyes and looked ahead in confusion. Then, he turned to look at Qi Xianxian. "It's not our turn yet." No, it said that one of the Bullmen team is very powerful. Right now, they are ranked first in the group competition. All the lights in the arena were focused on the two small teams of 5. The crowd who had watched the Bullmen team's matches before were even more excited. Chapter 1730. These two teams were made up of 5 people. One of the teams had 5 people wearing green shirts with a frog embroidered on the back. The other team was wearing white shirts with both men and women wearing the same color. Arbor was no longer sleepy after hearing the commotion. He looked at the two teams and asked curiously, which team is number 1? The white shirt team, Team Bull Bull. Qi Xianxian frowned. In other words, if so many of them wanted to rank among the top in this competition, they really had to defeat the bull race team. While they were chatting, the two teams had already started fighting. Arbor realized that the two teams each had their own set of coordination skills. He looked at them thoughtfully with great interest. The team competition should be about mobilizing everyone to fight together. There was no need for you to show off your individual skills. Arbor pondered as he watched. He said to Little Fatty, later when it's our turn to fight. Let's try fighting like this. Activate your earth shield and go first. Xianxian and I will attack from the back. Duanmu will assist from the side. Everyone nodded in unison. While they were talking, they suddenly heard a mocking laugh from the side. Io, isn't this our Ko family's little fatty genius, Ko Hongwen? Why are you here? Could it be that you don't have enough money to spend, so you can only come to the competition to earn money? After these words were spoken, a few mocking laughs came from the side. It was like a background noise, helping the man who spoke earlier to mock Little Fatty. The little genius has actually fallen to such a state. Tell me, if your father and mother saw this, wouldn't they be heartbroken? What do you know? Being poor will force a hero to his death. Moreover, the little genius doesn't lack money at all. Ha ha ha. The mocking voices were endless. Little Fatty Ko Hongwen's face darkened. He raised his pair of angry eyes and coldly stared at the group of people opposite him. This group of hedonistic young masters all held a fan in their hands and pretended to be distinguished officials. However, their eyes couldn't help but glance at Qi Xianxian and Arbor. Seeing Arbor and Qi Xianxian sitting on either side of Little Fatty, a trace of jealousy flashed across the eyes of the leader of the group. This damn fatty already looked like a country bumpkin, so why were there still girls hanging around him? It was the same in the Ko family. That damned fatty, he was obviously a fat and round bumpkin, but there were many girls in the family who liked this little fatty. Wasn't he just more talented than the average Ko family member? But, he was just a country bumpkin, and his parents were just from a side branch of the Ko clan. How could a country bumpkin like him compete with the legitimate son of the Ko clan for resources and girls? How preposterous. The little fatty's face turned red. What does it have to do with you whether I'm short of money or not? Ko Hongjian, what do you want? I'll kick you out of the Ko clan and order you to return to the countryside. You actually dared to return to Anka City. I have to say, you're really bold. Little Fatty's eyes were filled with anger. I have not learned anything. I will not go back. Ha ha ha. A vicious glint flashed across Ko Hongjian's eyes. A somewhat twisted smile hung on his originally handsome face. Do you think there will be any academy within 100 miles of Anka City that will take you in? It's you. Chapter 1731. The little fatty was so angry that he was trembling all over, unable to control himself. He finally understood why he was suddenly chased out of the clan, and at the same time, chased out of the academy that he had been in for more than 2 years. It turned out that everything was because of this kid in front of him. No, rather than saying that this kid was behind it, it was better to say that his father, the head of the Ko family, was backing him up from behind. Otherwise, how could Ko Hongjin, a hedonistic young master, convince Daeyo Academy not to accept him? Although Daeyo Academy's reputation in the Shuntian continent could not be compared to the 4 major academies, it was still a regular academy with a sizable scale. Usually, he studied well in Daeyo Academy and was always ranked in the top 10 of the academy. Suddenly, one day, the academy issued an expulsion order for no reason. In less than a day, the academy told him to pack up his things and leave without even giving him a reason. After that, he ran into a wall everywhere. All the academies near Anka City were unwilling to take him in. Subconsciously, he did not want to leave Anka City. After all, Anka City was not too far from his Xiaoping town. If he was free, he could go home and take care of his parents. Previously, he didn't understand why Daeyo Academy would suddenly expel him for no reason. Now, it seemed that the Ko family was involved in this. Ko Hongjin was just a dandy, so his words naturally did not carry much weight. If the head of the Ko family, Ko Dihai, spoke up, it would not be on the same level. Why did you do this? Ko Hongjin glanced at the little fatty in disgust and laughed mockingly. I just don't like you. Why, can't I? Ko Hongwen clenched his 2 chubby little fists tightly, his face full of anger. He really could not figure it out. Although he came from the countryside and was not a direct descendant of the Ko family, he still had the same surname. But no matter what, they were all surnamed Ko, from the same clan. Why did they treat him like this? Usually, when he was in the Ko family, he tried his best to keep a low profile and did not cover the sharpness of the few direct descendants of the Ko family. Wasn't he doing a good enough job? How could they treat him like a member of the Ko family? Little Fatty opened his mouth, only to feel that his throat was extremely dry, and his heart was heavy and uncomfortable. Qi Xianxian glanced at him and immediately jumped up in anger. She put her hands on her hips and scolded, "A bunch of brats, are you tired of living? All of you scram. Get out of my sight." Ko Hongjin's expression changed slightly. He sneered at Qi Xianxian and said, "Ladies, let me give you a piece of advice. Don't be fooled by the simple and honest face of this fatty in front of you. He was not an honest man. A few months ago, he was expelled from the Ko family for stealing the family's elixirs. Now, he's a complete pauper." Qi Xianxian kicked Ko Hongjin's leg without any explanation. This kick contained 70% of a level 14 Mystic Cultivator's strength, and it nearly fractured Ko Hongjin's calf. With a cry, Ko Hongjin fell backwards. The other hedonistic sons of rich families who were accompanying them hastily gathered around and caught Ko Hongjin, who was falling backwards. "Why did you hit him?" one of them shouted in exasperation. Another person also sneered, "Sure enough, he's in the same team as a peasant. All of you are uncivilized barbarians." Chapter 1732. Tisk, blind man. Qi Xianxian sneered. "Did this great ant use my hand? It was clearly my foot, all right." As she spoke, she ruthlessly punched one of them in the face. "Freaking look carefully, this is a real hand. You idiot." Bam! That person simply couldn't dodge in time and was hit squarely by Qi Xuanchuan's fist. He also fell backward and smashed onto the hard ground with a bang. However, the arena was very noisy right now, and most people's gazes were focused on the two-tiered arena. Only a few nearby people waiting for their matches were focused on Qi Xianxian and Ko Hongjin's group. Ko Hongjin was so angry that his face flushed red. He probably didn't expect that this little girl in front of him would actually attack them for Ko Hongwen. He immediately flew into a rage and spoke without thinking. He pointed at Qi Xianxian and sneered, as expected, "You're two pigs, one male and one female. You're both short, fat, and round, and have the same rotten taste." "What did you say?" The little fatty roared, "I forbid you from insulting my friend." Qi Xianxian lowered her head to look at her small, round body, and her charming face flushed red from anger. In reality, Qi Xianxian, this little foodie, only had a slightly round body due to her gluttony. She also had a naturally round baby face, so she looked a bit chubby from head to toe. However, she was far from being short, fat, and round. Upon seeing that Ko Hongzhen's foul mouth was about to make Qi Xianxian cry, the little fatty immediately stopped arguing with Ko Hongzhen and hastily turned to comfort Qi Xianxian. Ko Hongzhen sneered and said, "What, did I say something wrong? They're a pair of shameless people to begin with." Slap. 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 Then, 3 light and crisp slaps rang out, each with a rhythmic interval of 1 second. Ko Hongzhen was dumbfounded by the slaps. Earlier, they all saw very clearly that the little stoic with a frosty face in front of them didn't even touch Ko Hongzhen with her fingers. She merely flung out streaks of water spirit into the air, forming huge transparent palms, and slapped the stupefied Ko Hongzhen on the left side of his face 3 times in succession. "How dare you hit me?" As soon as Ko Hongzhen opened his mouth, he realized that something was wrong. Not only were his teeth loose, but there was also a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. He was so scared that he screamed. "You sound so girly." Qiao Mu creased her brows and raised her hand again. 3 streams of adept water spirits instantly transformed into 3 transparent palms. He flew straight towards Ko Hongzhen, and without the slightest hesitation. He once again slapped the other side of his face 3 times. Only then did he nod in satisfaction and say, "It's symmetrical now." Everyone was speechless for a moment and silently turned to look at her. The commotion at this moment had already attracted the attention of many people who were looking at the arena. Arbor pulled Qi Xianxian over and patted the back of her head. "Learn from me." He really didn't understand why he had to spout so much nonsense before hitting someone. What's there to quarrel about? In the face of strength, those who are nagging are simply the actions of fools. Her master had told her before that if she hit someone, she had to hit them to death. Either she didn't hit them at all, or she would beat them to death so that they wouldn't retaliate later on and cause a ruckus. Arbor felt that this was very reasonable. Recently, she kept inexplicably recalling the words that her master and Aunt Master had told her. Would she be able to find them if she remembered everything one day? Chapter 1733. When Ko Hongzhen opened his mouth, he spat out a mouthful of blood, and a few of his teeth fell out. Looking at the teeth on the ground, the expression in his eyes changed from fear. Teeth. Teeth fell out. Ah! Teeth fell out. Ko Hongzhen's face was filled with fear and shock as he stared in Arbor's direction. However, the latter acted as if nothing had happened. He held Qi Xuanquan's hand and sat down. He coldly glanced at Ko Hongzhen, who was surrounded by the Ko family's spoiled brats. Not satisfied. Arbor frowned slightly. His cold gaze swept past Ko Hongzhen's body, causing him to tremble for no reason. How could Ko Hongzhen dare to not be satisfied? He had already been beaten to this state. If he still refused to be satisfied, wouldn't he have to continue being beaten? These lackeys beside him were usually quite useful, but when it came to crucial moments, none of them were useful. I am leaving." Ko Hongzhen's lips trembled as he screamed. Before he left, he glared at the little fatty, his eyes filled with anger. Arbor raised his eyelids and looked at him meaningfully. This glance inexplicably made Ko Hongzhen's heart tremble. He had a feeling that something bad was about to happen to him. Ko Hongzhen limped forward with the help of others. However, before he could take a few steps, one of the Ko family's lackeys cried out in shock, young master, young master. Your face. What's all the fuss about?" Ko Hongjin was thinking about how to persuade his father to bring people to get back at them. When he heard his lackeys scream, he slapped him on the head without any explanation. However, this slap didn't make the lackey shut up. Instead, it caused a few of the Ko family's disciples to cry out in shock. The person who was supporting him even retracted his hand as if he had thrown something dirty. His expression was ugly as he took a few steps back before he stopped. What happened? Ko Hongjin only realized that something was wrong when he spoke. Why did he feel that his voice was a bit muffled? He raised his hand to touch his face and was immediately horrified. His originally delicate and pretty face was now swollen like a steamed bun. Why is it so swollen? As soon as he opened his mouth, Ko Hongjin realized that because his face was deformed, he couldn't even speak properly. His face had suddenly become so bloated and fat. This was simply inconceivable. Wah! The Ko family's people hurriedly retreated, their faces filled with horror as they tried to distance themselves from young Lord Ko. It seemed that this young Lord Ko had been afflicted with some kind of strange poison, and Yang Kai wondered if it would spread to them. At a time like this, no one dared to help or touch him. Everyone was very worried, wondering if they would be infected by young Lord Ko's poison. As a result, no one dared to get close to Ko Hongjin. They formed a semicircle from afar and looked at Ko Hongjin, whose face was swollen like a meat bun. In just a few minutes, Ko Hongjin's face no longer looked like a normal human face. Not only was his face as fat as a ball, but his swollen face even squeezed his originally normal eyes into two curved slits. At first glance, this person's face and body proportions were rather out of place, completely out of proportion. His head was like a big winter melon, but the rest of his body below his neck was normal. Young Lord Ko was shocked and frightened, his small eyes filled with fear. Chapter 1734. Everyone retreated to the side when they saw him. No one dared to come into contact with him. The melon-headed Ko Hongjin held his face in fear and roared twice. Then, he looked pleadingly at the surrounding Ko family members for help. However, the Ko family members all ran away faster than rats. No one dared to approach him. Ko Hongjin was shocked and scared. He had no idea what was happening to him. Seeing that no one came forward to help him, he could only turn around and run out of the arena. He wailed and howled along the way. Mata sneered and said he went home to cry to his father. When Qi Xianxian saw Ko Hongjin's miserable state, the slight unhappiness in her heart was swept away. Her round little face was full of smiles. She turned to look at Arbor and said, "Jojo, you're taking revenge for us, aren't you?" Arbor didn't even bat an eyelid. He said expressionlessly, "Do I look like someone who would do something so senseless?" "Yes." Everyone agreed in their hearts and nodded secretly. At this moment, a subordinate quietly walked to young Master Ding's side. He bent down and whispered into his ear. Young Master Ding looked up at him and nodded. He turned to Arbor and said, "Jojo, I'm going to take care of something. I'll be back soon. If you need anything, send someone to inform Steward Tang. Tang Cheng, take good care of Miss Chiao. If anything happens to her, I'll hold you responsible." Steward Tang, who was called out, hurriedly squeezed out a smile and bowed to Arbor and young Master Ding. "Don't worry, young master. I'll definitely take good care of Miss Chiao. I definitely won't let anyone bully her." Arbor glanced at young Master Ding. His gaze shifted to young Master Ding's departing figure before he retracted it. At this moment, the name of their team appeared on the crystal screen, Team Lychee. When the three words, Team Lychee, appeared, everyone instantly laughed that this was because their opponent was Team Lions. Team Lions versus Team Lychee. Just by looking at the name of the team, one could tell who was better. Team Lychee's teammates silently glanced at their team leader with a stoic face. One had to know that the squad leader had chosen this name quite casually. When they went to register earlier, the little stoic was nibbling on a lychee. She racked her brains but couldn't think of a good team name. She glanced at the lychee in her hand. They might as well become famous. Ahem. Mata smiled behind them and comforted Arbor and the others. It's okay. In order to show the loyalty of the students from the top academies, everyone went in and out together, so the names had to be similar. As the captain of the first group, Hua Tao decided on the name of his team, Longan Team. Success. Hua Tao and the other three clenched their fists at Arbor and the others. Arbor silently turned his eyes away, got up, and walked towards the center of the arena. Little Fatty, Qi Xianxian and Duanmu Qing stood up at the same time and followed her towards the arena. The two teams came out of the two passageways at the same time. When they saw each other, the 5 men of the Lion team couldn't help but laugh out loud. He's smiling like an idiot. Qi Xianxian muttered. When the two teams stood on the arena, a wave of explosive laughter resounded from all directions. In modern times, the 5 members of the Lion team were all 1.9 meters tall giants. On the other side, other than Duanmu Qing's height, his 3 teammates were all dwarves. The little stoic was expressionless. In reality, she had no idea what was going on at all. Chapter 1735. They didn't know what the others were laughing at, but they were all laughing like idiots. Arbor's face was expressionless. She didn't cooperate with the laughter at all. Her face was as cold as frost, and her clear eyes glanced at them. Thus the 5 members of the Lion team, who had been laughing heartily, couldn't help but rub their noses. The young lady in front of them was of normal height for her age. However, in front of the burly men of the Lion team, she appeared especially petite and cute. Little girl, it's not too late to leave the arena now. If we really fight later, we won't go easy on you just because you're small. Yes, our fists are very powerful. Don't cry when you get beaten up. You can't say that the Lion team bullies women and children. Arbor looked at the staff members in front of the arena. Why aren't you sounding the gong? They could start the battle as soon as the gong sounded. There was no efficiency in dilly-dallying. The staff member was clearly taken aback. He probably didn't expect Team Lychee to be so bold as to continue the competition despite the obvious comparison between them and the Lion team. Team Lychee. This name sounded like a joke. For members of Team Lychee and 5 members of the Lion team. Begin. Following the sound of a gong, the little fatty laughed mischievously. His left foot suddenly stomped on the ground, and he immediately pounced towards the lions like an arrow released from a bow. A thick earth shield blocked in front of him. It was 6 feet long and wide. It was more than enough for his team members to hide behind. Qi Xuanxuan's hand flashed, and a bolt of spirit lightning struck the Lion team, causing them to scream. They didn't even wait for the Lion team to react before attacking. Arbor's ice spikes flew towards the Lion team. Duanmu Qing's wood spirit also wrapped around the ankles of 2 Lion team members. The 2 of them couldn't react in time and couldn't break free from Duanmu Qing's wood spirit. They could only watch as Arbor's ice spikes flew towards their chests. Alarmed, they hurriedly raised their defenses to the maximum. However, the icicles pierced through their defensive barriers. The 2 of them were about to be shot through by the arbor. At the critical moment, the captain of the lions roared and summoned a ferocious beast covered in copper armor. When the beast was released, its hair stood on end. It turned around and roared at the members of Team Lychee in Arbor. This guy had copper skin and iron bones. When he stood in front of the lions, he really looked like he could hold back 10,000 men all by himself. In his rage, little Fatty did not hesitate to open his mouth and shout back at it. The bronze-armored beast was stunned for a moment, then it roared a few more times. Little Fatty followed suit and roared back. Everyone was speechless. This man and beast did not understand each other at all, yet they were still in the mood to bicker. When the other 4 members of Team Lychee saw that their captain had even taken out his trump card Spirit Beast to block the attack, they didn't hesitate and summoned their Mystic Beasts from their Mystic Beast spaces. As a result, the 5 people and 5 beasts glared at Arbor's Team Lychee like tigers eyeing their prey. In terms of numbers, Team Lychee completely defeated the Little Stoics team. Chapter 1736. However, this only meant one thing: they had more people than the Little Stoics Team Lychee. But in terms of true strength, Arbor's Team Lychee was clearly superior to Team Lion in terms of talent, age, and combat spiritual techniques. Spiritual techniques were a level higher than mystic techniques and could only be learned after advancing to the spiritual realm. It was something that spiritual masters yearned for even in their dreams. A good introductory spiritual technique could save spiritual masters at least 3 years of detours. Whether it was the growth of cultivation techniques or the cultivation of spiritual techniques, it had profound implications. Although Team Lychee only had 4 people, needless to say, Duamuqing and Arbor's cultivation techniques were definitely top-notch. Qi Xuanxuan's spiritual techniques weren't weak either. Although the little Fatty was slightly inferior, he was someone who could run around with his earth shield activated, so he didn't have high requirements for spiritual techniques. Normal people simply couldn't do anything to him. Many times, it wasn't easy to do things with more people. For example, right now, the little Fatty in the ring had activated his earth shield and nimbly ran in front of the Lion's captain, forcefully withstanding a few of his attacks. Team Lion's captain was flabbergasted and also a bit shocked. Although the little Fatty didn't look impressive, his earth shield was too strange. Putting aside the fact that it was wider and bigger than the earth shield activated by level 15 mystic cultivators of the same level, wasn't this earth shield maintained for too long? Under the protection of the earth shield, the little Fatty was able to move for close to an hour. During this time, he activated his earth shield and circled around his captain all day long. He really wanted to kick this nimble Fatty to death. For the first battle, the main purpose was to allow all the members to work together and get used to each other. When Arbor felt that it was about time, he waved his hand. Instantly, spiritual lightning and spiritual wood blotted out the sky and smashed toward Team Lion. The onlookers were dazzled. After the spiritual lightning stopped, they looked up and saw that Team Lion's 5 members and 5 beasts were forced to retreat step by the other 4. The people who were laughing at Team Lychee's height couldn't laugh anymore. The tall and sturdy Team Lion actually couldn't last more than 100 moves against Team Lychee. Everyone fell silent. In fact, Arbor had gone easy on them during these 100 moves. He wanted to keep a low profile and didn't want to expose the team's strength right from the start. Otherwise, let alone 100 moves, he didn't even know if these people could survive 10 moves. There were so many people in the Lions team, but their footsteps were a little complicated. When the captain's bronze-armored spirit beast rushed up, the rest of the team members also ran forward together. In such a rush to be the first, there was no longer a primary and secondary formation. After a round of fierce fighting, everyone's spiritual energy was obviously going downhill. However, Arbor and the others didn't feel that way. Little Fatty, Qi Xian, and Duamuqing, who had drunk 2 mouthfuls of water during the fight, all felt that their strength had recovered. This feeling was quite good. The spirit veins that were originally about to dry up were now overflowing with spirit energy due to the stimulation and replenishment from the spirit tea. Ha ha ha. Eat my hammer. Little Fatty reached out and took out his double-headed hammer. Without any explanation, he smashed it towards a person's head. A swift and violent force fell from the sky and flipped the man over on the spot. His neck hurt. He slept soundly and made up for 2 nights during the day. Chapter 1737. At the same time, Arbor's mystic energy and Qi Xuanxuan's 3 thunderbolts simultaneously attacked the leading bronze-armored spirit beast. The spirit beast had already developed intelligence. When it saw the ferocious attacks from the other party, it naturally wouldn't just stand there and wait for the lightning to strike. However, the moment it leaped, it realized that its 4 limbs had been firmly bound to the ground by Duanmu Qing's with thorns. How could it move an inch? Thus, this bronze-armored spirit beast bore the brunt of the unlucky attack. Not only did the thunderbolt strike it until it was charred on the outside and tender on the inside, Arbor's mystic energy just happened to hit its head. Instantly, this humongous spirit beast was sent flying and landed heavily on the ground. After a long while, it merely rubbed on the ground, unable to stand up. The lion team's captain cried out in alarm and hurriedly ran over to check on his partner. When he realized that the bronze-armored spirit beast wasn't in any danger, he heaved a sigh of relief and turned back to look at Arbor and the rest with a complicated expression. He wasn't a fool and could naturally tell that the other party had shown mercy. For this reason, the lion team's captain felt some gratitude in his heart. Meanwhile, the other members of the lion team couldn't laugh anymore. The captain nodded at Arbor. The younger generation will surpass us in time. We've lost. His team had summoned 5 beasts and even a spirit beast, but they still weren't a match for the other party. In fact, the other party didn't even summon a single mystic beast. He had relied on his own strength to defeat them. There was no longer a need to continue the competition. The lion team's captain nodded and said, "The lion team concedes defeat." Arbor glanced at them and felt that their attitudes were rather straightforward. They weren't like the others who refused to accept their loss and dawdled and wasted time. The results of the competition were immediately announced on the crystal stone screen. The spectators couldn't help but look at each other in dismay. There were even people who suddenly stood up agitatedly and slapped the fence as they cursed loudly. Arbor followed Duanmu Qing and the rest out of the arena and returned to his seat. He speechlessly looked at the cursing crowd and asked with a puzzled expression, "What are they cursing about?" Manager Tang quickly smiled and said, "These people all bet on the Lions to win. They've lost a lot of money now." Oh. Arbor turned to look at the steward. "Can I participate? Miss also wants to place a bet." Manager Tang said with a smile. "Of course. Place your bets today and open tomorrow. For normal competitions, it depends on the individual or team's odds. If I can buy a dark horse like you, then I can make a huge profit. I'm betting on the final winner of the main arena." Ah. Manager Tang was stunned for a moment before he smiled and said, "If you can bet on the final winner of the main tournament, you can get 10 times the spirit coins." "I bet 280,000 spirit coins," Arbor said with an indifferent expression. Beside him, Qi Xianxian, Duanmu Qing, and the others could not help but twitch their mouths. Ah. 280,000. 10,000 spirit coins. Could it be that this young lady had bet her entire fortune and life on this? Manager Tang also wanted to remind her that although it was very profitable to bet on the final arena champion, it wasn't that easy to guess. In all these years, there had almost never been a single competition where someone had correctly guessed the final arena champion. "Go buy it." Arbor took out 3 large bags of spirit coins from his inner world and poured some into his own money pouch before handing the rest to the steward. The steward accepted the 280,000 spirit coins in bewilderment. He heard the little stoic say crisply, "I'm betting all on myself winning." Chapter 1738. Buy some for me too. Mata hurriedly took out some spirit coins and gave them to Manager Tang. Qi Xian, Little Fatty, and even Duanmu Qing all took out a bag of spirit coins and gave them to Manager Tang. "We will also bet on Jojo's victory." Crazy. Manager Tang only felt that the group of people in front of him might be his young master's friends, but he felt that their intelligence was not on the same level as his young master. Why did these young masters and ladies seem to be retarded? Why did they place their bets so stubbornly? Manager Tang received so many spirit coins and went to arrange for the bets. When he left, his footsteps were still light. Qi Xian chuckled. "Look at his silly look. He looks at us as if we are fools. He doesn't know that he is the fool." Arbor looked at them silently. "How much did you bet?" 30,000. "My life is on you. We are counting on you, Jojo." Mata popped his head out from behind them and grinned. 20,000. "That is all I have." Little Fatty said. 800. Qi Xian cried silently. She had already dug through all her pockets and used all her pocket money to bet. "It's okay, Xian. When I earn money, I will share half with you," Little Fatty said. His 20,000 turned into 200,000. He didn't feel any heartache even if he shared half with Xian. Mata thought for a moment. "Then I will share 100,000 with you too, Xian. Qi Xian looked touched. She patted Little Fatty and Mata's shoulders. "Brothers, you are very kind." Arbor looked at them expressionlessly. These people were already splitting the money, as if they had already gotten the money. She turned to look at Duanmu Qing, who looked calm. "How much did you bet?" "The upper limit." Duanmu Qing calmly spat out these two words, causing Qi Xian, Little Fatty, Ma Ta, and the others to look at him in shock. "What is the upper limit?" Arbor asked curiously. 500,000. Qi Xian and the other two said in unison. "Damn, the boss was here." Arbor nodded expressionlessly. He heard Duanmu Qing say, "If we win, I'll give you half." "Yay!" Qi Xian almost jumped up. It was as if the money was already in her hands. Qiao Mu gazed at them silently. "Say, do you think the instructor is hiding in some corner and counting money?" The mentors that Arbor was talking about were indeed sitting in a corner far away. They whispered to Zhou Danjin, "How's it going? How much have you earned? Don't be hasty. Our first bet wasn't much, but the odds were high. We earned more than 10,000 yuan. Next time, the odds will definitely change, sigh. Earn more money and renovate the college peak. Look at what kind of rooms the students are living in. Don't you feel ashamed living in a lump of dirt? They are here to cultivate, not to enjoy life. Don't tell me we have to build a palace for them to live in." Instructor Wei Wei said faintly. "Cough, the dean said that all the money earned this time will be used to build houses. How is that enough?" Zhou Danjin said with a pained expression. "Moreover, just the few stalks of spirit herbs that are used to maintain the flaming energy peak has almost emptied our entire savings. No money, no money, no money. The little girl should be going to sign up for the single elimination tournament," Wei Wei said calmly. "Oh. How do you know? If she doesn't sign up for the single elimination tournament, do you think she can achieve the points you set previously by just fighting in normal competitions?" Chapter 1739. Zhou Danjin rubbed his nose and smiled wretchedly. "You mean we should bet heavily on her losing?" It was obvious that this little girl wouldn't be able to last until the end of the tournament. After all, she couldn't summon her holy beast, use talismans to eat pills, and use hidden weapons. Even those who could use all of the above couldn't last more than 10 rounds. It was obvious how difficult it was to defend the ring. Wei Wei looked at him like he was looking at an idiot. Zhou Danjin was confused by his gaze. He couldn't help but cough and ask, "What do you mean? Just say it." His IQ wasn't as high as Wei Wei's. He had already admitted it. "So don't look at me like I'm an idiot. There are only 2 ways to bet in the tournament. One is to guess who the final champion will be. The other is to bet on how many rounds a certain arena champion can last. Of course, the odds of betting on the final champion will be higher. If you guess correctly, you'll make a fortune." "Then what do you mean?" Zhou Danjin glanced at him and asked. "I want you to bet heavily on that little girl becoming the final champion," Wei Wei said indifferently. Hearing this, Zhou Danjin and the other 3 mentors all widened their eyes and looked at Mentor Wei Wei in unison. "Mentor Wei Wei, you're not joking, right? Betting heavily on something like this wasn't a joke. If one didn't do well, not only would they lose everything, they would also vomit all the money they won before. You have about 18,000 spirit coins on you right now," Wei Wei said with certainty. "Bet it all." Zhou Danjin looked like he was going to vomit blood. He shook his head and said, No, I don't have that much. I only have 8,000. Wei Wei looked at him meaningfully. "If you don't bet, you'll regret it in the end." "No way." The other mentors also felt that Mentor Wei Wei thought too highly of Arbor. It had to be known that no matter what, Xiao Mu was only a 15-year-old little girl. Moreover, they had already restricted her support abilities. If she could still become the ultimate arena champion like this, then how weak would the contestants in this year's underground fighting competition be? "Are you going to buy it or not?" Wei Wei patted Zhou Danjin's shoulder. "It's up to you." In any case, the financial power was in the hands of the wretched little man. In any case, when he didn't earn any money, the one who would cry to the heavens and smash his head against the ground would not be him, Wei Wei. "Instructor Wei Wei, how confident are you?" The short instructor Zhou Danjin asked cautiously, "Are you 100% confident?" Instructor Wei Wei shook his head. Zhou Danjin stingily put the 18,000 spirit coins back into his sleeve. Then forget it. Why don't we just buy the tickets for every match? You better think it through." Instructor Wei Wei glanced at him coldly. "The bets for the arena champion will end by today. At that time, even if you want to go back on your word, you won't be able to buy it. Then, why don't we buy it for 1,000 or 2,000? Wei Wei remained silent and half-closed his eyes. He clearly didn't care about this matter and allowed Zhou Danjin to deal with it herself. Anyway, that was all he had to say. Whether he wanted to buy or not, that was up to Instructor Zhou to worry about. In short, no matter what choice he made, he just didn't want to regret it. There was no medicine for regret in this world. Instructor Zhou adhered to the principle of prudence. He quickly held a small meeting with the other 3 mentors and asked for their opinions. Chapter 1740. In the end, the 4 of them reached a consensus. They took out 8,000 spirit coins to gamble and used the remaining 10,000 spirit coins to bet on the regular matches as usual. Hence, Instructor Zhou Danjin went to place his bets with 8,000 spirit coins with a pained expression. The Little Stoics team Lychee didn't have the luck to advance to the second match until the end of the day's matches. A light rain fell that night, and the next day, the weather was very hot. It was now August, and a random small inn in Anka City was cheap, but the living environment wasn't too good. Arbor's group planned to look for a better inn in the vicinity after tonight's matches ended. Although the little stoic wasn't a particular person, they had to find a more comfortable place to stay. After all, they still had to stay in Anka City for more than 20 days, so they couldn't just make do like this forever. This time, Qi Xianxian also expressed her approval. She looked as if she was rich, and her back was straight as a ramrod, as if she had already received the tenfold prize money. Sigh, weren't these people a bit too optimistic? She hadn't even started her first match in the main tournament, so she really didn't know where she got her confidence from. The main tournament had a lot of freedom. As long as you wanted to challenge someone, you could go to the second floor's arena at any time. Early this morning, a brawny man covered in fat jumped onto the second floor's central arena and kicked yesterday's unlucky champion out of the arena in a few moves. This person stood on the central arena with a disdainful expression and occasionally glanced contemptuously at his opponent who challenged him. Once, twice, thrice. When he defeated his opponent in only 3 moves for the 4th time, thunderous cheers erupted from the audience. Ha 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 ha. In the spectator stands, a middle-aged man sitting in the first row of VIP seats touched the emerald ring on his left thumb and glanced at the man with an unsightly expression next to him with a chuckle. Family head Zhu, how was it? Didn't I say that our family's iron pillar would definitely win the title of champion this time? The man with a dark complexion harumphed heavily and turned to look elsewhere. He only said coldly, not necessarily. The true victor will be the one who has the last laugh. Family head you don't need me to teach you this, do you? Family head you snorted coldly. He turned the emerald at his fingertips and sneered, then, Family head Zhu, do you dare to make a private bet with me? How about we bet on the bloodshed vermilion fruit that the Zhu clan found a few days ago? The Zhu family head's face changed dramatically. He sneered and shook his head, no. You. Family head you, who originally wanted to set a trap for family head Zhu and make him fall into it, couldn't help but feel a little annoyed when he saw that family head Zhu was completely ignoring him. Do you think I'm stupid? Zhu Bin coldly glanced at Patriarch Yu. The bloodshed vermilion fruit was an elixir that he had painstakingly found for his only son. It was for the sake of changing his only son's weak physique. Such an important thing was related to his son's life and future. How could he use it to gamble? Patriarch Yu provoked him. To put it bluntly, Patriarch Zhu, you don't dare. Don't you also think that our Iron Pillar will be re-elected as the arena champion? Zhu Bin was silent, but he wasn't the least bit provoked by family head Yu, no matter how unpleasant his words were. TSK, I advise you not to be stupid. In your Zhu clan, can you find anyone who knows how to use this bloodshed vermilion fruit? There's no one at all. Chapter 1741. Don't waste a saint-level spirit fruit, okay? Family head Yu smiled sarcastically at family head Zhu. The bloodshed vermilion fruit was good stuff, but it would be wasted if one did not know how to eat it. The sickly Zhu family had been sick for 8 to 10 years, and he still wanted to get up. TSK. What could he do if he got up? His cultivation base was much lower than his opponent's. What future did he have? He might as well give the bloodshed vermilion fruit to the young talents of the Yu family. For example, his eldest son, Yu Hui. Family head Yu's eyes glinted, and he said to family head Zhu in an indifferent tone, how about this, family head Zhu, name a price, and I'll buy the bloodshed vermilion fruit from you. You know, even if you find a way to eat that sickly Zhu family head, he can only evolve from a cripple to a normal person. It's very rare for an ordinary person to live a prosperous life on the Shuntian continent. Family head Zhu's expression was very ugly, but he pursed his lips and turned away, ignoring family head Yu. Family head Yu said angrily, Zhu Bin, don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. The Zhu family is as famous as the Yu family and the Fong family in Wenka City, but as you know, my eldest son, Yu Hui, is going to marry the genius second miss of the Fong family at the beginning of next month. When the Fong and Yu families join forces, do you think you'll be our match? Let's see if I'm your match or not. Family head Zhu said coldly. You. Family head Yu smiled gloomily, and his eyes glinted coldly. Don't forget that the bloodshed vermilion fruit can't be eaten for more than 10 days. Think about how many days it's been since your family had the bloodshed vermilion fruit. It's been 7 or 8 days. Your family doesn't even have a doctor who knows how to use this cinnabar fruit, so why insist on keeping it? It's useless. If it's useless, I'd rather throw it away like trash than let you Batian, take it for free. You. Family head Yu laughed instead of being angry. Good. A strong murderous intent flashed in his eyes, and he did not speak for a long time. No one knew what he was thinking. At this time, the fat man named Tai Zhu had already chased 8 opponents off the stage. At this moment, he was fighting fiercely with a woman in a butterfly dress. She had a graceful figure and her moves were also very agile and swift. From the looks of it, he was also a speed ability user. This big guy is so strong. Qi Xianxian was worried about the young lady on the stage. That young lady looks so slim. Can she beat him? You will lose within 3 moves. Just as Xiao Mu finished speaking, that stout man had already grabbed hold of the butterfly-clothed woman. He laughed so hard that all the fat on his body jiggled, and he raised his hand to caress that young lady's face. Little wifey, a woman as beautiful as you should just stay at home and wait on your husband. Why did you have to risk your life in the championship? Don't touch me. The woman in butterfly clothes was probably disgusted by the fat man and screamed. Yo. The fat man continued to tease, you're just a woman. If you dare to go up the stage, you should be mentally prepared to be taken liberties with. Hey! Let go of her. The little stoic's icy voice rang out. Qi Xianxian glanced to her side in astonishment, only to discover that the little stoic had disappeared at some point in time. She looked at the stage again and saw the little stoic standing in front of the fat man. Chapter 1742. She stood there, and in front of her stood a brawny man who was as fat as a mountain. The little girl was as thin and weak as a bean sprout. She was pitifully thin. Are you blind? Can't you see that your opponent is standing in front of you? The little stoic said coldly. The butterfly-clothed woman struggled in the fat man's hands and took the opportunity to jump away from him. When she passed by Arbor, she nodded gratefully at her and whispered, "Be careful, he's also a speed ability user." Arbor didn't realize that this fat man was also a speed ability user. He was so fat, so how fast could he display? But after the woman's reminder, she became more wary of the fat man. This guy looked as fat as a mountain, but he was actually a speed ability user. It was truly surprising. Ha. The fat man called Iron Pillar was clearly amused by Arbor's small figure. He cast a sidelong glance at her and raised one of his eyebrows. Little girl, you haven't even grown your hair yet, but you're already imitating others and coming to compete. Now, kneel down and kowtow to me. Obediently jump down, and I can spare your life. He. Ha. Chuckles rang out from the audience. They had already clearly seen Xiao Mu's petite figure. Although they also recognized that Arbor was the Dark Horse Team Lychee's captain, so what? A team competition and a group competition weren't on the same level. Previously, Team Lychee only defeated Team Lion with the help of the other 3 members. To put it bluntly, their victory was due to their teamwork. But it was different now. Only the stoic captain was standing in front of Iron Pillar. With Iron Pillar's large fist, he could probably beat her to the point of vomiting blood and fainting. Arbor was expressionless, and there was a cold and cheerless expression on her adorable little face. She didn't understand why the people below were laughing wildly. Iron Pillar stood in front of her with his hands on his hips. He was like a pile of white fat floating in front of her like waves. Arbor suddenly summoned a spirit weapon from her inner world. With a flick of her finger, she injected a wisp of mystic energy and indifferently said, "Explode." Then, under everyone's shocked expressions, the spiritual weapon suddenly exploded in the arena. The sound of the explosion had obviously affected the team that was in the middle of a regular season match. The two teams hurriedly found a place to hide, no longer caring about continuing the match. Fatty Iron Pillar's shocked expression was still fixed on his face, and his whole body fell backwards. It wasn't until a loud bang was heard, and everyone watched as he smashed into the arena, blood splattering all over the ground, that they suddenly realized. The little stoic threw out a spirit weapon as soon as they met, exploding Tai Zhu to death. What kind of joke was this? If a spirit artifact exploded at such a close distance, it would be strange if he could survive. Didn't you see that the two teams below were so nervous that they hurriedly retreated? The stoic face expressionlessly stood on the stage and turned to look at the staff members who stood foolishly in front of the crystal screen with stupefied expressions. "Aren't you going to announce the results?" This lady." Team Lychee's captain, Arbor said calmly. Team Lychee's captain, Arbor, wins. Iron Pillar of the U family wins 9 matches. Family Head U abruptly stood up from the VIP seats, his eyes wide as he stared fixedly at Arbor. Beside him, Family Head Zhu couldn't help but laugh. "See, didn't I say we would see who would have the last laugh?" Chapter 1743. Eubation's eyes widened as he stared at Arbor in disbelief. He shook his head and said, "That's impossible. That's impossible." His Iron Pillar was killed by a little girl's self-detonation of a spiritual weapon. Why? Eubation's eyes were almost filled with blood. He was very angry, but the Zhu clan's patriarch didn't let him off. He even mocked him with a faint smile. "Didn't Patriarch you say that your Tai Zhu is fully deserving of being the champion this time? Look, the arena champion is lying on the ground like a dead pig." "Shut up!" Eubation shouted angrily. Then, he pointed at Arbor and said sternly, "Where are the staff of the underground arena? Aren't you going to say something?" "Referee, that's against the rules. Who would so crudely and unscrupulously throw out a spirit tool and then self-destruct? Even a tycoon wouldn't do that." "Ahahaha." Jojo won. Qi Xianxian, who was worried about Jojo, stood up and laughed maniacally as if she had been injected with chicken blood. "You see, Jojo effortlessly killed that lump of fat meat. Look at the eyes of the people around them. TSK, TSK, TSK. Not everyone has the ability to self-detonate a spiritual weapon. In fact, a spiritual weapon was expensive. In Shuntian Prefecture's Wenka City, it was considered a luxury item. Wasn't it a waste to use such a luxury item to self-detonate? Arbor didn't think so. She was going to fight for points. If she didn't take a shortcut, she would be played to death by the instructors. Only an idiot would fight with others one by one. If she saw someone she liked, she would kick them off the stage. If she didn't like them, she would self-detonate. Wasn't that better? The staff came back to their senses and quickly added Arbor's name to the list of arena champions. Of course, Arbor hung the plaque with the arena champion on her waist. She didn't want to stupidly hang the plaque on her chest like a fool. For a moment, quite a number of people were shocked by her thunderous methods. For a short period of time, there was a gap in the number of challengers. Arbor stood idly on the main stage, leaning lazily on the side, waiting for someone to come to him. However, Patriarchy refused to comply. He questioned several staff members sternly, but the answers he received were very uniform. The tournament didn't prohibit the use of all kinds of support. In other words, if he wanted to explode his spirit tools like a nouveau riche, he couldn't do anything about it, right? Fortunately, when they first built this underground arena, they knew that once a fight broke out, it would definitely affect the innocent. Thus, they had already reinforced several defenses above the arena. Therefore, when the spirit energy exploded on the iron pillar, it didn't affect anyone else. Unable to seek justice, Family Head you could only fling his sleeves angrily and sit back down with a face full of hatred. He had no idea where this little girl came from. He had never seen her in Anka City before. Could it be that he was a young child from some hidden family who had come out to train? As Family Head you pondered this, he looked up again and gazed deeply at Xiao Mu. At this moment, Instructor Zhou Danjin, who was sitting in the corner, was so regretful that his intestines almost turned green. However, he still couldn't help but ask, Instructor Wei Wei, is she breaking the rules? She even self-detonated her spirit tool. Didn't it say in the letter that you can use spirit tools as support? Instructor Wei Wei said without even looking up. Chapter 1744. Holy shit, how could a spirit weapon be used like that? Zhou Danjin couldn't help but complain softly, this is too much of a scam. Isn't that so? A square-faced instructor couldn't help but complain, if this little girl uses her spirit weapon to self-destruct in every match to repel her opponents, then she can really defend until the end and become the final champion. The other two instructors looked at each other in dismay. That can't be. If she self-destructed her spirit weapon in every match, then how many spirit weapons would she have to self-destruct to defend until the end? Moreover, if this little girl self-destructed her spirit weapon in every match, would the defensive barrier on the second floor of the arena be able to last until the end? Thinking about it, it didn't seem very likely. Zhou Danjin pursed his lips and said, since that's the case, then there's nothing more to say. Let's just say that her results are valid this time. Rich students were indeed different. They had clearly given so many restrictions, but it was impossible to guard against them, causing her to use such a crooked move. Count. Arbor naturally didn't know that the instructors were privately discussing this. However, if she knew that Instructor Zhou Danjin counted her results as valid, she would definitely snort in disdain. She had Qi Xianxian take out the authentic letters that the instructors had given her and explain to them word by word. The rule about not being able to use divine weapons and being able to use spirit weapons was written by the instructors themselves. Why would they care how she uses this spirit weapon? If she uses it to chop people or self-destruct it, they couldn't care less. Arbor casually patted the arena champion card hanging on her waist. After a quarter of an hour, she turned to the staff in front of the crystal screen and asked impatiently, is there anyone else who wants to challenge me? The place she was standing on was about to grow mushrooms, yet no one had come up to challenge her. Was it because she was too easy to talk to? Manager Tang couldn't help but twitch his mouth as he hurriedly comforted the little girl's emotions. It's probably because Miss Chiao is too powerful. You have to give everyone some time to calm down. As he spoke, he coughed and said, if no one comes up to challenge Miss Chiao in an hour, then today's arena champion will undoubtedly be Miss Chiao. As soon as he finished speaking, an expanse of clamorous noise couldn't help but arise in the surroundings, and it was mixed with many unconvinced questions. However, there was no more noise. That was the rule. If no one dared to challenge Arbor in the next hour, Arbor would become the champion of the day. A few unconvinced youngsters were eager to give it a try, using their eyes to signal others to go first. But in the end, no one dared to go up and give it a try. Everyone felt their teeth ache as they watched the little stoic strolling around the small arena on the second floor. Why did he feel like he was being cheated? "I'll do it." Suddenly, a seemingly elegant young master in white stood up and floated to the small arena on the second floor like a pure white cloud. When he landed on the ground, the white-robed young master's white robes fluttered in the wind. His robes fluttered slightly as he descended from the sky, giving off an indescribable sense of beauty. Arbor was expressionless. Thunderous applause rang out from the audience. "All right. All right. This is the Fong family's genius third young master, right? I didn't expect third young master Fong to also participate in this competition. Oh my god, if I knew third young master Fong would also be participating, then I would have bet on him winning. How laughable. Isn't that third young master Fong from a prestigious patrician family? Why did he also participate in the Underground Fighting Arenas Championship?" Chapter 1745. Haven't you all thought of this reason? Moreover, who was he putting on a show for when he appeared in such a pretentious manner? Didn't he see that the little girl was very dismissive of him? He hovered in the air like a bird and slowly descended. When he landed, he even opened his folding fan and posed very nicely. The little girl rolled her eyes at him. Everyone felt that it was a bit comical when they saw it. Third young master Fong boasted of his elegance, but the little girl didn't even look him in the eye. From Arbor's point of view, this person's appearance really didn't stand out. He was the type of person that Miss Chow couldn't remember even if she looked at him twice. Of course, third young master Fong was actually quite good-looking, but Miss Chow was the type of person who wouldn't even take a second look at a handsome man like Duan Yu, let alone this third young master Fong. They didn't know what he was showing off for. He didn't fly very nicely and posed like a freaking idiot. Although they were far away, Qi Xianxian, Duan Muqing, and the others all had keen eyesight. They could read the little girl's intentions from observing her expression and paying attention to her gaze. It was quite funny when they thought about it. This third young master Fong was probably going on stage to amuse himself. "Little miss, please point." Before third young master Fong could say the word teach, the little girl's figure flashed and suddenly closed in on him. She closed the distance of 3 meters in the blink of an eye. The little girl didn't allow for an explanation and slapped a palm print formed by water spirit directly at third young master Fong's chest. Third young master shouted, "Good timing," but before he could finish speaking, he was already hit by the water spirit palm print. He somersaulted in the air and was blown away by the waves. Everyone, Arbor scuttled forward and swung a small iron fist at third young master Fong's head. Thump, thump, thump. Third young master Fong only felt like his head was smashed by a small hammer 3 times in a row, causing him to feel dizzy and fall to the ground with a thud. "Get down!" Arbor scolded softly. He kicked third young master's lower back. The third young master let out a blood-curdling scream as he rushed towards the edge of the stage. He dangled dangerously on the stage's railing, with half of his body dangling. If not for his 2 legs supporting him on the ground, he would have fallen down by now. Everyone was speechless again. Why did they have a feeling of speechlessness? Was it really good for the little girl to be so cruel? "Get down!" Arbor kicked third young master's lower back again. "No, don't kick. A man's waist." Fuck, it was obvious that this wretched lass was blind. Which budding girl didn't have a spring in her heart? Seeing such an elegant and handsome young master appear in front of her, she couldn't help but be startled. Not only did she not blush, she even raised her fists and beat him to death. Can you really get married like this? You're as barbaric as a man. Are you sure you can find a husband? Before third young master Fong vomited blood, he hurriedly summoned his mystic beast, a strong yellow horse with tiger spots. It looked a bit strange. When it galloped, its speed was very fast. But when it came to its attack power, it wasn't that strong. The yellow horse leaped slightly and carried third young Master Fong. Cough, cough, cough. Third young Master Fong panted slightly on the horse. He lowered his head and saw that there was a small footprint printed on the front and back of his white shirt. Chapter 1746. Third young Master Fong couldn't help but be flustered and exasperated. You little lady, how could you attack without any explanation? You. Third young Master Fong had probably never seen a little lady who would beat someone to death without saying anything. His handsome face flushed red instantly. He truly had never suffered such a huge loss before. He was chased and beaten by a little lady in front of everyone, and he practically didn't have the strength to retaliate. Arbor frowned slightly. Why wasn't this person going down? With a flick of her finger, a scimitar-like spirit weapon appeared in her hand. Third young Master Fong jumped in fright and galloped 2 steps back on his yellow horse. He was already very close to the edge of the arena on the 2nd floor. You, don't mess around. What do you want to do? Let me tell you, people like you who self-destruct by abusing spirit weapons are. He watched as Arbor channeled a wisp of mystic energy into the spirit weapon and was about to throw it in his direction. Third young Master Fong's eyes dimmed, and he abruptly reached out to pat his yellow horse's head. 1 man and 1 horse galloped into the air. Everyone immediately cheered loudly. So third young Master Fong's extremely ordinary-looking horse actually has wings. At this time, that yellow horse with tiger spots had already flapped its wings and flew up, hovering high above Arbor's head. Arbor's gaze darkened, and her face was displeased. She raised her hand slightly, and a cold glint flitted past her eyes. A move of ice descended, and a violent vortex of spirit energy mixed with converging hailstones swept toward third young Master Fong, whose expression changed drastically. He hastily pressed his yellow horse's head to land on the ground, but before he could think of a way to escape this predicament, the little stoic's Frost Wind Slash followed closely behind. Frost Wind Slash was a move that she comprehended on her own from Qing Huan's moves. When this Frost Wind Slash descended, it directly cut a deep gash in the ground of the entire arena. Broken stones rolled down from the ring, seriously affecting the 2 teams that were competing on the 1st floor. The unlucky teams were hastily pulled by their respective captains and hastily ran to the sides. Get down. Following the little stoic's indifferent voice, third young Master Fong only felt the pressure of that Frost Wind Slash, and his entire person fell down from the edge of the stage. Third young Master Fong let out a miserable scream. The yellow horse seemed to have been frightened by the little girl's Frost Wind Slash. It even forgot to spread its wings. 1 man and 1 beast miserably fell to the ground, unable to get up for a long time. When Arbor looked up, the staff member who was stunned in front of the crystal screen immediately understood and hurriedly said, Miss Chow wins this round. At this moment, those who had said that Miss Chow didn't win with her own ability all shut their mouths. This was the first time the lady had self-detonated her spiritual artifact. She probably didn't think much of her opponent. She probably couldn't be bothered to make a move against such a weakling. An hour later. Because no one else dared to challenge Arbor, Arbor became the youngest champion of the day. When she came down from the 2nd floor of the ring, Arbor was still expressionless. Everyone wanted to see joy and excitement on her face, but they were disappointed. Jojo. Qi Xianxian welcomed her with a face full of smiles and hooked her arm. I knew you would definitely win. Arbor nodded. Later, I'll have Manager Tang calculate how many points we earned. Chapter 1747. Ever since they entered this underground battle arena, they had become anxious. Every now and then, they would want to know how many points their team had. Arbor was still skeptical about gathering enough points to summon a tutor. Based on the character of the tutors from the top academies, who knew if they would give them more small missions when they had enough points. Arbor had just been pulled to a seat by Qi Xianxian when he heard a dong sound from the back door of the battle arena. It was as if someone had forcefully slammed it open. A group of people carried a wooden stretcher and clustered around a middle-aged man. They moved toward Arbor and the others. Everyone curiously glanced at the group of people. When they saw the middle-aged man's appearance, they shut their mouths tightly and didn't say anything else. Family head, it's her. She's the one who attacked young master. Capture Ko Hongwen first. The middle-aged family head coldly shouted. Immediately, 4 or 5 people revealed black ropes in their hands. Without any explanation, they went toward the little fatty, Ko Hongwen. Of course, little fatty wouldn't just sit there and wait for his death. However, he had only just started to move. But when he moved, a few fierce-looking burly men pounced over. They reached out to grab his arms and put ropes around his hands. Arbor really didn't like the way these people acted. They would always come over and attack others for no reason. As the aristocratic families of the Middle Realm, their arrogant and ugly faces had all been inadvertently revealed. Scram! Arbor didn't need to do anything. Duanmu Qing's face darkened. He flicked his sleeves and threw away the ropes that bound the little fatty. Duanmu Qing looked coldly at the middle-aged leader and said coldly, Steward Tang, someone is causing trouble in your arena. Don't you need to do something about it? Steward Tang naturally didn't dare to be negligent. Before his young master left, he had instructed him to take good care of Miss Chiao. These people didn't have eyes. If they offended Miss Chiao and made her unhappy, his young master might think that he didn't do his job well. Steward Tang hurriedly waved his hand with a solemn expression. Let the arena's security personnel come forward and stop the middle-aged man's group. Of course, Steward Tang recognized this middle-aged man. Everyone in Wenka City knew the name of the Ko family's patriarch. Ko family head. Steward Tang cupped his hands towards Ko Dihai, his attitude still quite amiable. These people are friends of my master. May I know why Patriarch Ko is looking for trouble with them? Ko Dihai's expression changed slightly as he looked at Steward Tang with a complicated expression. Of course, he knew that Steward Tang was one of the main people in charge of the underground fighting arena. If he accidentally offended him, it would be quite troublesome. But now, he had no choice but to offend him. His precious son had been turned into a pig's head and face that had not gone down even after a day and night. Instead, it had swelled up even more. Pus would flow out from under his skin if he touched him lightly. Looking at his son lying there crying and screaming, as a father, his heart was tormented. No matter what, he had to capture this little traitor, Ko Hongwen, and deal with him in private. How dare he be so ruthless to his Zhen-er? He, Ko Hongwen, had only himself to blame for everything that had happened to him. He glared coldly at Ko Hongwen with hazy eyes. Little bastard, how dare you be so ruthless to Master's younger brother? What are you still standing there for? Detain them. Detain everyone. Chapter 1748. Steward Tang's expression darkened. He ordered the arena guards to step forward and separate the people the Ko family had brought. Ko Dihai looked at Steward Tang angrily and said, Steward Tang, you and I have lived in peace in Anka City for so many years, and we see each other all the time. I don't want to make things difficult for you. As long as you let me take these people away, the Ko family will continue to support your underground arena's competitions in the future. Steward Tang shook his head. No. What a joke. The young master had personally asked him to take care of this lady. How could he let Ko Dihai deal with her? He secretly gave the servant behind him a look. The servant immediately understood and turned to look for young Master Ding. Tang Cheng. Ko Dihai's expression turned cold. He forced the words out of his gritted teeth. Don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. As soon as he finished speaking, a heavy pressure surged towards everyone. Arbor and the others immediately realized that the Ko family's patriarch, Ko Dihai, was a spiritual master who had broken through to level 8. With his talent, this was already the limit. That was why the Ko family had been staying in Anka City for so many years. They were not particularly top-notch aristocratic families like the Yu family, but they were not very poor either. At least, they had some reputation in Anka City. When the Ko family's patriarch walked out, people would give him some face. Therefore, he felt a little embarrassed when Tang Ching rejected him in front of everyone. Arbor looked up and glanced at him without saying anything. Since Steward Tang was so righteous to take on this matter for them, then it was none of her business. Tang Ching, move aside, Ko Dihai shouted angrily, attracting the attention of many people in the arena. Patriarch Ko, Miss Chiao and her friends are our arena's honored guests and the young master's friends. Please forgive them. I forgive your mother. The Ko family's patriarch cursed in his heart. He pointed at Arbor and said angrily, "This damned girl, you're asking me to forgive you after what you did to my son. Move aside, this has nothing to do with you." Ko Dihai really did not want to make things difficult for Qian Luo's underground arena. After all, those who could open an underground fighting arena in Anka City were all people with some background. Rather than saying that Ko Dihai did not want to offend young Master Ding, it was better to say that he did not want to offend his background. Boom! Ko Dihai launched a probing spiritual attack straight at Arbor and the others. Halfway through, a burst of spiritual energy erupted from Tang Cheng's body and blocked the Ko family head. Ko family head. Tang Cheng's face also became very ugly. Today, if you fight in our Qian Luo's underground battle arena, then it's clear that you want to be our enemy. Am I right? Tang Cheng. Ko Dihai glared angrily and clenched his fists tightly. I don't want to make things difficult for your arena. Get out of my way. That's impossible. Steward Tang assumed a battle stance. The guards of the battle arena swarmed out from all directions and surrounded Ko Dihai and his group. It was obvious that their numbers were more than twice the number of people that Ko Dihai had brought. Ko Dihai was immediately put on the spot. He gritted his teeth for a long time before he suddenly swung his sleeves and said angrily, "Fine. I won't make things difficult for these juniors. However, this damned girl must cure my Zhen. Arbor looked at the Ko family head expressionlessly and did not say anything. He wanted to see how the Ko family head would continue his act. You're asking for treatment with such a bad attitude. Serves you right for not being able to get treatment. Chapter 1749. Qi Xianxian spat at Ko Dihai. I don't even know what you're talking about. You're like a mad dog, going around biting people as soon as you come in. It's really scary. As she spoke, she even pretended to be afraid and patted her chest twice to show her fear. Family head Do was so angry that he was about to ascend to the heavens. He raised a finger and pointed at her. You've been talking for a long time, but you still haven't said anything. In fact, Ko Dihai wasn't completely sure that the poison in his son's body was from Arbor. Who are you? Arbor bluntly asked. Family head Do was so angry that his nostrils flared as he huffed and puffed. What was more infuriating than messing around for a long time, but the other party didn't even know who you were. Tang Ching couldn't help but twitch her mouth. This is family head Do. The young master who had a conflict with this little brother in your team is family head Do's son. Oh, this was a classic case of hitting the young and the old coming. Arbor didn't want to waste any more words with Ko Di Hai. She coldly looked at him, her eyes filled with ridicule. Bringing a group of shrimp soldiers and crab generals, he broke into the underground fighting arena and wanted to capture her, Ko Hongwen, and the others. Wasn't this person's thinking a bit too idealistic? Ko Di Hai naturally saw the mockery in her eyes. His heart was filled with anger, and his old eyes immediately turned cold. You. Before Ko Di Hai could finish his sentence, he found that his body had been sent flying in a strange manner. What was going on? When his head hit the seat heavily, a few people who were watching the competition jumped up in fright. Ko Di Hai then found that he had been sent flying by a huge force. The source of this huge force was the little fat squirrel. It silently retracted its fat white tail and jumped into Arbor's arms. Arbor looked down and suddenly reached out to poke the fat squirrel's head. Cho-Cho didn't know when it had gained another little tail. This was really strange. Now, the fat squirrel had two tiny tails wagging behind its butt. It didn't look too strange. The other people in the contestant area sucked in a breath of cold air. At first, they thought that Arbor's lychee team hadn't brought out a useful mystical beast for so many hours because their family background wasn't too good. But now, someone else had a beast that was comparable to a small pet. It was fine if it didn't show its might, but once it showed its might, it could send an 8th-level spiritual master flying out of the sky without hesitation. This was simply incomprehensible. Perhaps their reaction arc was too slow. They felt that the scene just now was as if their eyes were playing tricks on them. That fat squirrel was only slightly bigger than a palm, so how could it have so much energy? What happened? Young Master Ding, who had heard the news, walked over with a gentle expression. However, when he looked at Ko Di Hai, there was a trace of coldness that could not be easily detected. Ko Di Hai was stunned. He turned around and glanced at young Master Ding. Immediately, he was speechless. Young Master Ding did not come alone. He had brought 300 guards with him and appeared in front of everyone in such a grand manner. When Ko Di Hai saw this, his eyelids twitched violently. His face was a little embarrassed. He opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but the situation was stronger than him. He had to take a step back first. After a long while, House Master Ko flicked his sleeve and said angrily, "Let's go." Ding Yun's voice instantly turned cold. "Stop them." Chapter 1750. Many guards behind young Master Ding swarmed forward and surrounded Ko Di Hai and the others. Ko Di Hai's expression suddenly changed. He turned and glared at young Master Ding. "Young Master, what do you want?" Young Master Ding sneered, "You are the Ko family head, right? Do you think that our Qian Luo underground arena is a place where anyone can come and go as they please? You want to catch someone, but you brought a group of people and barged in without saying a word. Now you want to leave, but you want to leave without saying a word. What is Qian Luo underground arena in your eyes?" Ko Di Hai held back his anger and said kindly, "Young Master, I acted without thinking, please forgive me. But today's matter is not targeted at Qian Luo underground arena. It's this young lady. This young lady is this young master's friend. Qian Luo underground arena has a reason to protect them." Ding Yun said lightly. "Ko family head, as for you, when you attacked earlier, you destroyed some of the facilities in our underground fighting arena. Shouldn't you compensate us properly?" Ko Di Hai's face turned red when he heard this. He pointed at Ding Yun and said in a trembling voice, You. These people were simply too much. His son was watching the competition in the arena, but he was poisoned by an unknown poison and ran home screaming. He had brought people here to seek justice for his son. Was that wrong? Even if this justice could not be obtained now. He also hoped that the person who poisoned his son would remove the poison. Was this also wrong? But young Master Ko did not know that Miss Chiao had always been amenable to coaxing but not coercion. If you're here, apologize to her properly and say a few soft words. Maybe she'll give you the antidote. After all, it was not a big deal. But now, young Master Ko rushed in and wanted to catch someone. Not to mention that Arbor did not have a good temper. Even if he had a good temper, he would not be able to stand it. Let this Guhongzhen have a fat winter melon head and enjoy 15 days. Who told him to mock others as fat as a pig's head? Why not let him experience what it means to be as fat as a pig's head? Arbor did not want to talk to Ko Dihai anymore. After sitting down, he continued to watch the match. Ko Dihai's face was gloomy. He turned his head and looked at the little fatty who was sitting at the side and watching silently with cold eyes. Ko Hongwen. Ko Dihai sneered and said, "Today's matter has developed to this extent, it must be your masterpiece. Do you dare to say that this has nothing to do with you?" Little fatty could not help but say, "It's Xia Hongzhen who is slandering me." When he thought of this, his face filled with anger. He wrongly accused me, saying that I stole the clan's spiritual medicine. How could the Ko family head not know about this? Ko Hongwen said angrily, "The little tricks that Ko Hongwen has done behind my back, the patriarch should be fully aware of them. He caused me to be expelled from Dayo Academy. This is all his work. I've been in the academy for more than 2 years. How could Diao Academy not know what I am? But after he caused me to leave Dayo Academy, he played all kinds of tricks behind my back, causing all the academies in Anka City to avoid me like the plague. Such a person dares to walk in front of me and insult my friends so shamelessly. He only has himself to blame." Ko Dihai was furious. He raised his hand and was about to attack when young Master Ding signaled him with his eyes. Chapter 1751. Several guards drew their swords and pointed them at the Ko family head's chest and back. As long as he dared to move, the guards' swords would not let him go. Ko Dihai saw that the situation was beyond his control, so he had no choice but to flick his sleeves angrily and say to Arbor and the others, "You win. Today, the people of Qian Luo's underground fighting arena will protect you. But don't forget, once you leave this underground fighting arena, I'll see who can protect you." Arbor glanced at him, then looked up at young Master Ding. She said expressionlessly, "This person is talking nonsense in your underground fighting arena, and he doesn't care about you at all. How can you let him go out like this?" Ko Dihai was stunned when he heard this, and his face instantly stiffened. His gaze towards Chiao Mu was simply as if he could swallow her whole. This damned girl instigated young Master Ding in front of the person involved. Won't she be beaten to death? Young Master Ding smiled gently. Chow, if you don't want him to live, then I'll get someone to kill him. He's the Ko family head. Do you dare to do that? Aren't you afraid that your fighting arena will be destroyed?" Young Master Ding couldn't help but sneer, "It's just a small Ko family. If I kill him, he won't be able to find anyone to reason with." Arbor said, "Oh," and didn't say anything else. Young Master Ding raised his eyebrows, "Do you want me to do it?" Arbor didn't say anything. She wouldn't be so stupid to ask him to kill someone. If he asked Ding Hao to take action now, wouldn't he owe Ding Hao a favor? What a joke, was Arbor's favor so easily given? He was just a small Ko family head. If she didn't want him to live, she could do it herself. There was no need for others to do it. Young Master Ding saw that she didn't say anything and couldn't help but sigh. "Ah." Jojo still doesn't trust me. Arbor snorted. Trust? Was the word trust meant for him? How could she trust a wastrel? Young Master Ding blinked at her. Actually, if we spend more time together, you'll know that I'm actually a good person. Arbor chuckled and didn't say anything else. He just waved his little hand impatiently, indicating that he shouldn't disturb her from watching the game. Although this competition was most likely boring and she only wanted to sleep after watching it, Lin Yiqian still felt like sleeping. However, out of the 10 matches, there were still 1 or 2 exciting fights. As a result, Arbor felt that the group of people beside him was a bit of an eyesore. He wanted to chase them away as soon as possible. When Ko Dihai saw that they only cared about themselves and completely ignored him, he couldn't help but feel angry. Today, he originally wanted to capture Arbor and the others. Even if he had to settle for the second best, he wanted her to hand over the antidote. But now, not only had he failed to accomplish a single thing, he had even suffered a bellyful of anger for no reason at all. This made Ko Dihai extremely furious. Young Master. At this time, Tang Cheng walked to young Master Ding's side and respectfully handed him a list. Young Master Ding shook the list and slowly read it out. Ko family head, your disciples destroyed 2 rows of seats in our underground fighting arena. They also made a section of the ground full of potholes. It's very ugly. This young master wants to find someone to fix it, and that will cost spirit coins. According to the list, the damaged items are worth 8,456 spirit coins. This young master reluctantly rounded up the remainder. You can give me 8,000 spirit coins. Chapter 1752. The Ko family head's expression was quite interesting to see. His face was alternating between green, white, and black. His eyes were glaring at young Master Ding as if they were about to shoot out flames. What? Do you have any objections to this compensation? Young Master Ding smiled and clapped his hands. Tang Cheng. Your subordinate is here. Steward Tang lowered his head and quickly walked forward. Suddenly, he shook his outer robe and tore off his shirt. Not only did he reveal all the muscles on his body, but there was also a burst of strong spiritual energy from his body. Everyone could feel the power of a level 9 spirit master. Everyone couldn't help but be stunned. This Qianluo underground battle arena really had a lot of resources. Even a seemingly unknown steward had the cultivation of a level 9 spirit master. No wonder no one dared to cause trouble at the Qianluo underground battle arena for so long. Everyone's respect for the Qianluo underground battle arena was not without reason. Everyone silently shut their mouths and waited for the situation to develop. The Ko family's patriarch's face was extremely ugly. After staring blankly for a long time, he suddenly took out a heavy bag of spirit coins from his inner world and placed it heavily on a nearby stool before turning to the group of Ko family disciples and saying, "Let's go." Qi Xianxian curled her lips and secretly sighed in pity. The Ko family's head had come all the way here just to give young Master Ding 8,000 spirit coins in the underground fighting arena. Arbor glanced at the Ko family head and then shifted her gaze to the arena. Young Master Ding looked at her helplessly and whispered to Steward Tang. Then, he led a group of people and left. Xiao Mu turned her head in astonishment and looked in the direction that young Sir Ding had left in. What's wrong? Qi Xianxian asked. Duanmu Qing couldn't help but whisper, this young master is very protective of Jojo. Ding Yun just ordered Steward Tang to lead people to deal with the Ko family head. Although his voice wasn't loud, with Arbor and Duanmu Qing's hearing, they naturally heard it. Arbor heard this and couldn't help but snort. With a proud expression, she said, who needs his help? Qi Xianxian couldn't help but laugh. Jojo, why do you dislike that young master so much? Although she did not have much contact with Ding Yun, judging from his appearance, this young Master Ding still looked like a dog, and his temperament seemed to be quite docile. It was just that if Jojo didn't like someone, they would more or less have a grudge against her. He guessed that child Ding had offended Jojo before. Arbor didn't say anything. After a while, he said crisply, "Even if he helped us drive away Cody High, I still won't be lenient when it comes to making money." What he meant was that she had won 28 spirit coins by betting on him. After she had won the bet, he couldn't give her a single cent less. Qi Xian immediately nodded, of course. But at that time, would young Master Ding lose so badly that he would cry? At most, I'll give him 200 spirit coins as a tip. Miss Chow's stingy nature immediately surfaced when she said this. Little Fatty couldn't help but twitch his mouth, but he still shook his head honestly and said, "Since you're giving it to me, we don't need to give it to you." Duanmu Qing was speechless. What kind of teammates did he end up with? As they spoke, a staff member in front of the crystal screen reported the name of Team Longin. Mata and the others immediately rushed onto the field and fought against Team Frog, who had lost to Team Ox. Team Frog versus Team Longin. The atmosphere in the field was once again ignited. Chapter 1753. Will Dao Wuji be alright? The Peony Fairy couldn't help but mutter. The Ginkgo Fairy, who had a love-struck look on her face as she stared at the handsome man, unconsciously replied, "He looks so ordinary. Whether he dies or not has nothing to do with us. Big sister, why do you care about him?" The Peony Fairy was speechless. After all, she had imprisoned Dao Wuji for so long, so she was just saying that casually. The Luo brothers glanced at each other. Dao Wuji wasn't bad-looking, was he? It was just that in front of their boss and Yuan Shichen, he was a little lacking. But they shouldn't let him die just because he was average-looking. Yuan Shichen was a little curious. What kind of mystic beast do you think Dao Wuji encountered? Why hasn't he come out for so long? Little Tai Sui snorted. It wouldn't be surprising if a dilly-dallying coward died in the Tower of Punishment. When little Tai Sui recalled how this man had repeatedly paced back and forth in front of the doors, it couldn't help but say, "Damned sissy." Everyone. Did Dao Wuji look like a sissy? Little Tai Sui, on the other hand, was as pretty as a little girl with red lips and white teeth. Dao Wuji looked like a tough guy, but little Tai Sui kept calling him a damn sissy. That was really shocking. He doesn't look like a sissy, he's just a sissy. Little Tai Sui explained, he's indecisive and sissy. He didn't like this guy at all. Yuan Shichen smiled. Little Tai Sui, you're quite good at judging people. Little Tai Sui's face darkened. He turned around and said angrily to Yuan Shichen, "Don't talk to me like I'm a kid. You have to respect me." Everyone was silent for a moment, selectively ignoring his words. As they spoke, they entered the 17th floor. As soon as they entered, they discovered that their surroundings were plunged into darkness. Or rather, it wasn't just the surroundings that were plunged into darkness. Above their heads, below their feet, and in front of their eyes, everything was a dazzling starry sky. The stars were like little diamonds embedded in the night sky, dazzling and gorgeous. Mo Lian was slightly taken aback. She felt as if she were standing on a star, and all she could see was a vast expanse of starry sky. It was boundless, and she couldn't see the end of it. What was the meaning of this layer? Such a vast and boundless starry sky was displayed in front of him. What was he supposed to explore? Prince Mo was at a loss for a moment. He stared blankly at the boundless starry sky and slowly walked forward. He only felt that the stars in front of him were twinkling and changing unpredictably. For a moment, they were arranged into a picture, but in the next second, they changed into another shape. In the depths of the sea of stars, he seemed to be able to see a slender figure running ahead while waving her small hands and her skirt fluttering in the wind. With a flash of his body, he chased after him. However, that figure was so vague that it was like a bubble that was embedded in the sea of stars. There was no way he could catch up to it. He had no choice but to run forward. The more he chased her, the more he felt that she was getting further and further away from him. The shadow in the depths of the sea of stars seemed to be forever out of reach. Inexplicably, he became irritated in his heart. At the same time, in a small room on the 16th floor, a certain someone, who was being hung upside down on the flower branch as nourishment, was shouting at the top of his lungs, "Hey! Is there anyone here? Guards! Please stop fooling around, okay?" Chapter 1754. He felt that if this went on, his life force would be gradually absorbed by the morning glory. Soon, he would end up like the people around him. His life force would be sucked dry by the morning glory. How could this happen? He, Dao Wuji, was not someone who would sit around and wait for death. In order to survive, he might have to give it his all. He used his divine sense, and an item suddenly jumped out of his inner world. This was the celestial prime Saint Power Pearl that he used to save his life. He had bought it at a sky-high price. Every time he thought about it, he felt his heart ache. Unfortunately, he had already spent all his money. No matter how much he felt, it was useless. Moreover, if this money could save his life, it would be worth it. However, when the Saint Power Pearl exploded, it would not distinguish between friend and foe. In his current situation, he could not escape. If he threw the Saint Power Pearl, it would inevitably affect him. However, he no longer had a choice. He had reached the point where he had to risk his life. The winner would live, and the loser would die. Dao Wuji's heart skipped a beat. He raised his hand with difficulty and poured all the Saint Power he could gather into this high-level Saint Power Pearl. Soon, a loud explosion came from this small room. However, Mo Lien and the others could not hear it. They were now trapped in the starry sky and could not help but run into the depths of the starry sky. The section break of Zi Yunxi's house. 20 days later. In Qian Luo's underground arena, there were roars that were comparable to wild beasts. The battle for points had reached its climax. The first place on the crystal screen was Team Nyobi. This team had not met any opponents along the way. They had participated in the challenge tournament earlier and had obtained some points. Hence, Team Nyobi, who was in first place, had accumulated 906 points. As for Team Lychee from Arbor's family, they had accumulated 898 points and were in second place. Among these 898 points, there were 720 points from Arbor's victory in the challenge tournament. Arbor had fought a total of 38 matches in 20 days since he started participating in the challenge tournament, breaking the record of the previous challenge tournament. Arbor had been in the ring since the first day of the match and had never left the ring. As for Team Longan, because they did not participate in the main tournament, even if they worked hard every day, they only had 306 points and had not entered the top 50. A bunch of pitiful kids. They had to fight more than a dozen matches every day. They were dog-tired every day, and their points were so low. Arbor saw that they were quite pitiful, so he looked for Mata and said, "If we have 1,000 points, we'll give some to you." Mata immediately burst into tears, his face full of joy. They even asked the waitress at the service area about this. When the two ladies learned that Team Lychee from Arbor was going to give some points to Team Longan, they looked at them as if they were fools. It was as if the people from Arbor had done something stupid. Everyone knew how hard it was to earn points in the underground arena. There were actually people who wanted to give away their points. If they were not fools, then what were they? Arbor naturally did not give Mata and the others his points. He only asked them if they could do so and then went back with them. Mata, Huatao, and the others had been worried about their points. Now that they saw a glimmer of hope, they were very grateful to Miss Chiao. She was their lifesaver. Chapter 1755. The little girl had done them a huge favor. They didn't want to stay in this arena after a month of hard work and earn points to go home. Who knew what kind of punishment the instructors would give if they didn't complete this mission? Arbor's small arena matches were very easy now. Apart from the fierce challengers in the first few days, no one dared to challenge her in the arena these 2 days. There was no other reason. When Miss Chiao was in a good mood, she would practice with others for fun. If she was in a bad mood and happened to meet someone she didn't like, she would take out a spirit artifact and drop it for fun. Everyone had carefully calculated for her. A conservative estimate was that Miss Chiao had dropped at least 10 spirit artifacts. Every day, Steward Tang of the arena would send people to reinforce the defensive layer of the small arena to prevent innocent people from getting hurt. That what else could you say to such a rich person? You couldn't afford to offend her, so you could at least avoid her. Arbor had just sat down in her seat when a person hurried over and bowed to her respectfully. Miss Chiao. Steward Zhu. Arbor nodded. The middle-aged man named Steward Zhu was the chief steward of the Zhu family, one of the 3 aristocratic families in Anka City. Miss Chiao, the patriarch, sent this lowly one to ask if you have time to visit the Zhu family for a follow-up examination after today's matches. Arbor looked at the matches in the arena. The day's matches were almost over, so she nodded and said, "Sure, please wait a moment." Yes. Steward Zhu was overjoyed. He cupped his hands and quickly retreated to the side, tactfully not disturbing Arbor. Speaking of which, the only son of the Zhu family's patriarch was saved by the little girl before him. Speaking of this, the story went back to 20 days ago. Yu Batian had set his eyes on the bloodshed vermilion fruit of the Zhu family. After failing to cheat him of it, he found people to intercept the patriarch and take it by force. The little girl happened to bump into him on the way and saved him in passing. After hearing that the Zhu family's patriarch had a holy medicine but didn't know how to use it, everything happened naturally. Now, everyone in the Zhu family regarded Arbor as their great benefactor who gave them a new lease on life. This was not only because he had saved the Zhu family's patriarch, but also because he had cured the Zhu family's only heir, the illness that young Master Zhu had when he was still in the womb. Although it was a saint-grade spirit fruit with superb effects, if it wasn't for the little girl, no one in the Zhu family would use this bloodshed vermilion fruit. Even if it was forcefully given to young Master Zhu, it might not be effective. But in fact, the Zhu family was too honest. The little girl didn't just conveniently save Patriarch Zhu. It was only because Qiu had coincidentally seen Patriarch Zhu being chased by someone that he had cheered. That person has the aura of the bloodshed vermilion fruit on him. She chased after him to help and, conveniently, saved him. After she obtained the vermilion fruit, the little stoic excused that the bloodshed vermilion fruit wasn't properly maintained and needed to be nurtured for 2 more days before it could be used. Very naturally, he transplanted this holy herb into his own herb garden on Paradise Planet. To help young Master Zhu improve his physique, there was no need to use the bloodshed vermilion fruit at all. It was simply overkill. The outer pulp of this bloodshed vermilion fruit could improve one's physique and prolong one's life. The biggest use of the core inside was to help people comprehend their spirit roots. Normal people probably didn't know about this point. She had only learned about it from Long Chuyin's personal notes. Seeing that the Zhu family had contributed a bloodshed vermilion fruit, the little stoic was very concerned about young Master Zhu's fetus illness. Chapter 1756. Not only did he use sacred water to recuperate his body, he even racked his brains to specially concoct the most suitable pulse-healing pill for him. He even reluctantly gave young Master Zhu 3 taels of spiritual tea and asked someone to brew it for him to recuperate his body and bones. In this way, 20 days later, young Master Zhu had been recuperated to the point where he was lively and energetic. Compared to his usual sickly appearance, he was much better. Although young Master Zhu was still unable to practice martial arts, his body was slowly recuperating. As long as this continued, he would definitely be able to practice martial arts after 3 years. In the past, when his body was weak, even with Xian meridians, he could only sigh at his inadequacy and was unable to accumulate Xian energy. But after recuperating his body, it was different. He could practice whenever he wanted and slowly, his body would become stronger and stronger. Zhu Su took in a deep breath. When Arbor walked in, he saw young Master Zhu leaning against the window with only a thin outer robe draped over his body. "Come here." Under Miss Qiao's shout, young Master Zhu obediently climbed down from the window and ran to her side. The 2 servant girls who followed and looked down, and although the corners of their mouths were secretly twitching, they were already used to it. Thinking back to when Miss Qiao first came to treat young Master, she even rolled up her sleeves and gave young Master Zhu a beating. This. What did you want everyone to say? Their young master originally didn't have any will to live, but it was beaten back by this violent Miss Qiao. Cough. Although family head Zhu's heart ached when he saw his son being beaten up, he didn't expect the results to be so good after the beating. Family head Zhu had nothing to say. "Jojo, what did you bring for me today?" Young Master Zhu was about the same age as Arbor and was born with a baby face. Now that his complexion was getting better, his little face was rosy and it added some cuteness to a young man. When Arbor first met him, young Master Zhu was leaning against the window lifelessly, looking at the lake and feeling remorse. He didn't have the slightest bit of manliness. After taking his pulse and giving him a prescription, he responded weakly with just a breath more than a dead person. What kind of explosive temper did Miss Qiao have? This great aunt had personally come to treat you for the sake of that stock of sacred medicine and you still dare to give her the cold shoulder. One look and you know that face is asking for a beating. Fight! After a round of beating, Zhu Gongzi sobbed and became much more obedient. This naturally weak young master had always been well protected by the Zhu family head since he was a child. When had he ever seen such a violent doctor? When I passed by a mask stall today, I saw 2 very interesting masks, so I bought them. Do you want them? Yes, yes, yes. Young Master Zhu did not step out of the house all year round, so he was curious about everything that happened outside. Not to mention a mask, even if you gave him a piece of dog poop, he would hold it in his hand and admire it for a long time. After Arbor finished treating him, he glanced at a certain someone who was playing with the mask with her head lowered. He snorted and said, "Let's go." "Hey, Jojo, don't go yet." Young Master Zhu hurriedly said, "Tomorrow night is the annual Chrysanthemum Festival. Why don't you take me out for a stroll?" Arbor turned his head and looked at him with a smile that was not a smile. Young Master Zhu couldn't help but blush. He coughed lightly and said that, if you didn't speak up, my father definitely wouldn't have let me out. He had stayed in the house for so many years that he felt like he was going to rot. Chapter 1757. Not to mention anything else, even ordinary people walking around outside had become an extravagant hope for him. How could this not make him depressed and discouraged? Arbor patted his head. "Your body is getting better day by day. It's not a problem for you to go out for some fresh air." "Really?" Zhu Gongzi's baby face immediately lit up. "I'll introduce a few friends to you while I'm at it." Sure. Zhu Gongzi was overjoyed. He had been ill for so many years, not to mention friends, even relatives rarely visited him. The condition is that you have to take your medicine well tonight and rest early. Yes, yes, I will. Zhu Gongzi nodded his head like a chick pecking at rice. His obedient appearance made the two servant girls beside him cover their mouths and secretly laugh. Arbor rather liked this simple youth in front of her. In the past, when she saw his lifeless appearance, she only felt very displeased. There was no other reason. A youth like him should be living under the sun, all right. Why was he pretending to be melancholic for no reason? She hated it just looking at him. All right, I still have matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave first. Arbor packed her things and walked out the door. I'll come and pick you up tomorrow evening. All right. Zhu Gongzi waved his hand and sent her off with an expectant gaze. When Arbor was at the main entrance, she coincidentally bumped into Zhu Family Head, who had hurried back. Zhu Family Head looked a bit travel-worn. He must have taken care of a pile of matters and rushed over because he was concerned about his son's condition when he heard that she was in the residence. Zhu Bin hurried forward to greet her, "Little divine doctor." Arbor waved her hand. She was never a divine doctor. Her medical skills were only slightly better than ordinary people's. Your son's body has been nursed back to health quite well. He just needs to keep it up. I changed the prescription for him today. The medicine is mainly gentle and nourishing. After taking it well for 3 months, he should be able to recover. In the future, he just needs to consolidate a little. Zhu Family Head was overjoyed and thanked her profusely. Arbor continued, "Tomorrow is a rare chrysanthemum birthday. I want to bring Zhu Gongzi out for some fresh air. This will also help his condition. Now that young Master Zhu's body is starting to get better, it is necessary for him to take a stroll." Zhu Family Head stared blankly for a moment before nodding his head repeatedly in agreement. Then, he personally sent Miss Qiao out of the door. Watching Miss Qiao get into the carriage and leave, Zhu Family Head smiled. "Congratulations, Patriarch. Young Master's illness is getting better and better. In a few more days, he might be able to cultivate." Manager Zhu also said with a face full of joy. Patriarch Zhu nodded. "Fortunately, I met the little miracle doctor." Fortunately, the Patriarch trusts this little miracle doctor. If it was someone else, seeing that the little girl was so young, they might not even let her treat the young master's illness. Now that Su Er's illness has been cured, I can finally rest easy. Patriarch Zhu said with relief, "When I go to the underworld and see Su Er's mother, I will finally have the face to meet her." The Patriarch is in the prime of his life. In the future, he will have to watch the young master get married and have children. If Madame knew about this, she would definitely be smiling in the underworld. Patriarch Zhu nodded. His expression suddenly turned serious. Anka City hasn't been peaceful recently. Tomorrow, when the little miracle doctor and Su Er go out, you must send more people to protect them. Yes, Patriarch. Manager Zhu cupped his hands in salute and naturally agreed. Chapter 1758. The next day, Arbor lazily said to everyone after they finished their matches, "Tonight, there's a chrysanthemum festival in the city. I plan to bring young Master Zhu there for a stroll. Those who want to come along can come." Ma Ta was the first to raise his hand. "I was just about to tell you. I also heard from others that this chrysanthemum festival is very lively. There's even free chrysanthemum wine along the streets to taste." "Oh. Then we should go and take a look." Lu Yu, Jiang Shaoxin, and Hua Tao all nodded. For so long, everyone had been cooped up in the underground arena to compete every day. They were almost petrified from all the fighting. It was rare for them to go out and relax. Only fools wouldn't go. Chow Chow, Zhu family's young master, is he the one that you often go to treat these days? Chow Chow's glorious deed of saving Zhu family's head had long been spread in the city. Basically, everyone knew that family head Yu wanted to snatch a sacred medicine from family head Zhu. He didn't hesitate to chase after family head Zhu and was saved by a little godly doctor in the end. Yes, it's that young master Zhu, Arbor said indifferently. Qi Xianxian smiled happily. That's great. I heard that young master Zhu is sick all day. He should come out more often. Tonight's Chrysanthemum Festival, let's drink to our heart's content and not go home until we're drunk. Duanmu glanced at her coolly and said in a low voice, don't we have to compete early in the morning tomorrow? This was simply like a basin of cold water that instantly extinguished Qi Xuanxuan's enthusiasm. Little Fatty smiled and said, we can still drink a few cups. As for not going home until we're drunk, forget it. After all, they still had to compete tomorrow. However, in these 20 days of competition, each of them had improved a lot. They had benefited a lot from actual combat. Coupled with the spirit tea that Arbor had given them, all of them except for Arbor had advanced a small step. Jiang Shaoxin had entered the level 1 mastery realm, Lu Yu had advanced to the level 2 initial mastery realm, and Hua Tao had entered the level 2 entry mastery realm. As for the little fatty, his improvement was the greatest. He broke through the threshold of the spirit realm from the peak of level 15 mystic cultivator realm and ascended to the entry level of level 1 spiritual cultivator realm in one leap. Qi Xianxian, Duanmu Qing, and Ma Ta had also improved. They had respectively risen to the initial success stage of level 14 Mystic Cultivator, the entry stage of level 4 Spiritual Cultivator, and the peak stage of level 1 Spiritual Cultivator. Compared to everyone who had more or less taken a small step, Xiao Mu's situation appeared a bit strange. She clearly felt that the barrier to the spirit realm was within her reach, very, very close. But no matter what, he couldn't seem to pass the threshold, and was always blocked in front of the door of the spirit realm. Thinking of this, Arbor couldn't help but shake his head, temporarily throwing this question to the back of his mind. When it was almost 10 o'clock in the evening, the group of people boarded 2 separate carriages and arrived at the Zhu family's gate. They picked up young Master Zhu and took him to the busiest street in Wenka City. At the same time, Yu Batian, who was raging in his room, received an uninvited guest. This customer's appearance was very mediocre. At first glance, he looked no different from an ordinary person on the street. However, his eyes were extremely thin and long, and his voice sounded a bit like a eunuch's. Family head Yu, not only did you not obtain the holy medicine, but you also attracted trouble for no reason. Do you want to let this matter rest? Who are you? Chapter 1759. Yu Batian wasn't a fool. He wanted to compete with family head Zhu for the position of the head of the aristocratic families in Wenka City, but he wouldn't allow his family to be in danger. Who are you? Yu Batian asked in a low voice. Just call me Brother Go. The feminine voice let out a shrill laugh. Yu Batian furrowed his brows. This person was able to sneak into his master bedroom without anyone noticing. It was obvious that the Yu family's guards were useless against him. His cultivation was naturally much higher than anyone in the Yu family. Yu Batian didn't want to make an enemy out of this mysterious person, at least not now. Judging from the Zhu family's attitude, they were definitely planning to start a war with them. Family head Yu didn't want to provoke a mysterious enemy in front of a strong enemy. Therefore, he relaxed his expression and put on a respectful attitude as he called out, Brother Go. Brother Go, why are you visiting so late at night? A small brocade box suddenly fell into family head Yu's hand. Send the best person in your family to challenge the arena champion tomorrow. Yu Batian couldn't help but smile bitterly. I'm afraid it'll be difficult. The current champion was a rich man through and through. She probably dropped more than 10 spiritual artifacts in the past 20 days. Brother Goat smiled eerily. What do you think is in the box I gave you? It's an elixir that can instantly increase a person's strength by 3 times. What? You only need to send a disciple who's a spiritual master. Imagine if a level 4 spiritual master's strength is increased by 3 times. What will happen? Yubation's breathing quickened. Brother Go, do you have a grudge against the young arena champion? Brother Go didn't even bat an eyelid. He just said calmly, that's not something you need to worry about. In short, you are responsible for killing this person for me. Okay. Yubatian was very happy. He couldn't wait to kill this little miracle doctor girl. That way, without the miracle doctor's treatment, the Zhu family's only son's condition would worsen. As long as the sickly Zhu family continued to fall, family head Zhu would naturally have to take care of him. The Yu family would definitely take over the Zhu family sooner or later. However, my lord, my eldest son has been delayed by some matters and hasn't been able to return to the clan yet. It will probably take another 5 or 6 days. Could you give me a few more days? Brother Go furrowed his brows. Are you sure you can make it in time for the main competition to end? I'm sure. Yubatian nodded with a smile. The arena battle tournament will end in 8 days. My eldest son, Yu Hui, will definitely make it back. It would be better to let that little champion continue to be happy for a few more days until the competition was almost over. Let my son chase that girl who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth down the stage. The feeling of falling from the clouds to the mud must be wonderful. Ha ha ha. The high-pitched voice laughed. Brother Guzzi nodded and said, You're right. I'll leave this matter to you. Yes. Yubatian licked his lips excitedly. Yubatian couldn't help but laugh out loud when he thought about how sullen he had been for the past few days and how he would be able to relax after a few days. Xiao, how many more days do you think you can be the champion of the arena? For the sake of smoothness, I'll give your son something that will guarantee his victory. Come with me. Chapter 1760. Arbor naturally didn't know that Yubatian and an unknown person were plotting against her behind her back. Even if she knew, she would probably scoff at them. Did they really think that the spirit medicine that could increase cultivation by 3 times was so easy to take? It might feel good for a while, but would they still want to live after taking it? The human body had a tolerance for spirit power. Otherwise, why was it said that one shouldn't take risks when advancing? Once this tolerance was exceeded, the human body wouldn't be able to withstand it and would easily explode and die. Arbor didn't know that family head Yu had been instigated to deal with her. At this moment, she was leading young Master Zhu, Qi Xianxian, and the others slowly on the bustling streets of Anka City. Today, pots of chrysanthemums were placed on both sides of the streets of Anka City, but few people actually took out chrysanthemum wine and invited people to taste it. However, it made sense. In this day and age, wine was a luxury item. This year's chrysanthemum festival was purely for appreciating the flowers. There's no wine. Ma Ta looked disappointed. He wanted to taste the chrysanthemum wine of Anka City and see if it was any different from the ones he had eaten before. Arbor glanced at him in amusement. You want a drink? Jojo has wine. There's good bamboo leaf wine and homemade winter fruit wine. Which one do you want to drink? Winter fruit wine. Everyone said in unison. Then let's go. Arbor pointed at a flower rack made of potted chrysanthemum plants in front of them. A few tables and chairs were placed there for the tourists to rest their feet. When the group walked over, they saw that many people were sitting at the tables and chairs in front of the flower rack. Some people were holding cups and shaking their heads as they commented on the chrysanthemum wine and recited poems. There were also some people sitting around a table, holding a bamboo tablet and racking their brains for something. What are they doing? Mata curiously went over to take a look. After a while, he squeezed out of the crowd and smiled at Arbor and the others. There's a small amount of chrysanthemum wine here, but you have to guess at least 3 riddles on the bamboo tablet. Are you going to guess? Qi Xianxian and the others looked at him curiously. Mata quickly shook his head. Don't we have winter fruit wine? Why do you have to fight for the chrysanthemum wine? Qi Xianxian sneered, actually, you're just not smart enough to guess it. As he spoke, he saw Duanmu Qing walk out from the crowd with a small wine jar in his hand. Everyone's eyes lit up as they looked at him. Duanmu, how many puzzles have you guessed correctly? Upper limit. Everyone was speechless. What's the upper limit? 12 questions. Is everything correct? Qi Xianxian asked curiously as she blinked her eyes. Okay. Everyone sat down at a square table and surrounded it. Then, they pulled out a stool from the side and sat down. Each of them took out a small cup from their inner world and accepted the cup of wine that Duanmu Qing poured for them. They took a sip and smacked their lips. It's too faint. It looks like it has been diluted with water. Mata put down the cup with a disappointed expression. Everyone else put down their cups after tasting a mouthful. What's so good about diluted wine? Arbor took out a jade wine gourd from his inner world. Try my winter fruit wine. Everyone made the same gesture, wanting to pour away the wine in their cups and accept Arbor's winter fruit wine. Who knew that an old man in ragged clothes would jump out from the side, holding a large bowl with a chipped corner? He smiled at them and said, Don't waste it. Little friends, if you don't want to drink, give it to me. Chapter 1761. The old man opened his mouth and smiled, revealing a row of shiny teeth. Arbor saw that the old man had a red nose and was dressed in tattered clothes. Although he looked like a beggar, his spirit and appearance were very good. She couldn't help but find it funny. She nodded and signaled everyone to pour the chrysanthemum wine into the old man's bowl. The old man was beaming with joy. He grinned foolishly at her for a while before holding the big bowl and squatting at the side to drink. Everyone shook their heads helplessly and turned to look at Arbor. Arbor opened the jade gourd and a strong fragrance of fruit wine floated out of the gourd. The old man who was squatting at the side and drinking the wine like it was water suddenly twitched his nose. He got up from the ground and turned to look in Arbor's direction. There were many elderly people sitting in front of the flower stand. When they smelled the wine, they all turned to look at Arbor. Wow! Qi Xianxian and the others couldn't help but cry out in surprise. Jojo, you still have such good wine hidden away. You've really hidden it well. Arbor couldn't help but feel helpless. Actually, this winter fruit wine was made by Little Tree when he was bored. Naturally, she didn't have the leisure to do so. The reason was that there were too many winter fruits. Even though she had already given Prince Mo a lot of winter fruits, there were still many left in the storage. Little Tree thought that they were taking up space and it was a pity to throw them away, so he took all of them to make wine. Come, let's drink. Mata laughed and raised his cup to everyone. The 9 cups clinked lightly and a mouthful of winter fruit wine went down their stomachs. They only felt that it was sweet and pleasant. The fruit wine in their stomachs emitted a trace of heat. This taste is too good. Qi Xianxian couldn't help but praise. Even someone like her who didn't drink often felt that this fruit wine was very good. There was a trace of sweetness, but it wasn't too sweet. After drinking it, she felt that her muscles and veins were very smooth. It was really good stuff. The old beggar at the side was already drooling. He scratched his ears and cheeks as he stood beside Arbor's table with a strange expression. "Little girl, is this wine really brewed from the winter fruit?" The old man with rosacea asked curiously. It was not like he had never tasted winter fruit wine before, but how could it taste so strong? "It's winter fruit wine." Arbor nodded with certainty. "But these winter fruits have been soaked in holy water for a while." At that time, Arbor originally wanted to make chilled winter fruit, but it was soaked there for a long time without being touched. When she remembered, the impatient sapling had already disposed of it. So, what could she say? The old man with rosacea ran to Arbor's side and chuckled, "Little girl, can you give this old man a sip of your wine?" Arbor saw his bright eyes staring straight at the jade gourd in her hand. When he spoke, he couldn't help but swallow his saliva. It was obvious that he was an alcoholic. "Okay, I'll share with you." Arbor nodded reluctantly. "Since you're an old man." "Everyone, dot." Arbor held the wine gourd and poured wine for the old man. The old man watched from the side and urged, "More, more. Little girl, don't be stingy. Your wine gourd clearly contains dozens of barrels of wine. Giving this old man a big bowl won't be a loss." Arbor's eyes flashed. She poured half a bowl and stopped. "Tell me who you are, and I'll fill it up for you." There were so many people present, but no one noticed anything strange about her jade gourd. Why did this old man have better eyesight than others? Chapter 1762. No one would believe him if he said he wasn't a hermit expert. The old man pursed his lips and gave Arbor a sidelong glance. "How can a little doll like you talk like that? I'm just an ordinary old beggar." Arbor naturally didn't believe him and snorted softly. Seeing her withdrawing her hand and about to take back the jade gourd, the old man instantly panicked and made a fuss. Hey, what exactly do you want to know, little doll? Tell me. Do you dare to say that you didn't purposely approach me for some purpose?" Arbor asked indifferently. The old man immediately put on an innocent look and chuckled. What purpose could this old man have? This old man smelled the wine, and the alcohol bug in my stomach flared up, so I ran over to ask a little doll like you for a cup of wine. The old beggar did his best to put on a "please look at my sincere old face" look. "Oh, is that so?" Arbor couldn't help but scoff. "Stop pretending. With your eyesight, you can tell that my jade gourd is different from the rest at a glance, and you still dare to say that you're not an expert." The old man hastily waved his hand and said, No, it's you who's thinking too much, little doll." After saying that, the old man simply dragged a stool from the side and squeezed his way to Arbor's side to sit down. He said with a grin, "Forget it, seeing that you rewarded this old man with a mouthful of wine, this old man will give you something good. So that a little doll like you won't always think that this old man is a swindler." Arbor was a bit amused inwardly, but she didn't show it on her face. No matter how the old man looked at her little stoic face, he couldn't make out any clues. The old man couldn't help but feel a bit exasperated and dissatisfied with her attitude. He pressed, "Don't tell me you're not the least bit curious. Shouldn't such a young little girl immediately reveal an interested expression and ask what he was going to give her when she heard someone say that he was going to give her a gift? Why didn't this little fellow in front of him follow the routine at all?" A certain Jojo who didn't fall for the old man's trick blinked and asked along with the old man's words, "Then what do you want to give me, old grandpa?" The old man's face instantly lit up with joy, and he slapped his thigh and said with a smile, That's right. Little girl, don't pretend to be old all day." Arbor's mouth twitched, but she didn't argue. "How about this, you give me 2 full bowls, and I'll let you see that good thing." Hearing this, Mata couldn't help but laugh. You old man, don't tell me you're here to cheat us of our wine. Young man, don't talk nonsense. Am I that kind of person? The Jojos, Jojo, Jojot, Juice, Jot, STSS, Ts, S. TTSS, TTS, have 8, S to T. Arbor tilted her little head. Old grandpa, other than wine, I also have side dishes to go with it. Do you want some? The old man's eyes lit up when he heard that. Come. You little child, you're so mean. You only thought of side dishes after watching this old man drink for so long. Everyone. This old man was a natural socializer. He didn't feel the least bit embarrassed about extorting a little girl like this. Arbor waved her hand and took out a plate of spicy yellow croakers. She held it in her arms and said, "Old grandpa, what good stuff do you have?" Chapter 1763. The corners of the old man's mouth twitched. You stingy girl, you really don't act unless you see an incentive. Here, don't say that this old man cheated you of your food and wine. This is for you. Then, he reached into his robes and took out a round transparent bowl. He threw it in front of the little fellow and was done with it. The little fellow raised her hand and took a look at the transparent ball, only to see that there was still half a wall of water rippling inside. A unique, richly ornamented 3-story boat, which looked like a model, was drifting with the waves inside. Her small hand shook the transparent ball. Arbor could clearly sense that this was not some condensed mystic domain similar to the heart of paradise. Thus, she could not let her little tree take it in and make it into a new planet. So, what was the use of it? She turned to look at the little old man and pursed her lips. Old grandpa, what is this? Ah, it looks quite unique. Qi Xian and young Master Zhu both leaned over and took the small bowl. They held it in their hands and admired it. Arbor, however, did not think much of it. What was the use of giving a small model that could only be admired and played with? You really don't know what's good for you. The old man blew his beard and glared at her. Then, he pointed at Duanmuqing. Explain it to this little girl. He looked like he was busy drinking and eating and could not be bothered to speak to Arbor. Duanmuqing turned to look at Arbor and said softly, Jojo, quickly thank this senior. The old man waved his hand and used his chopsticks to pick up the small yellow croaker. There's no need to thank me. Why don't you bring 2 more dishes to this old man? I was right to say that you were stingy. You were only willing to give me 1 dish. Why aren't you stingy to death? Xiao Mu blinked her large, black eyes. She took the transparent ball that little young Sir Zhu handed over and shook it vigorously. What is it? This is a sealing ball. It can seal large objects inside. When the time comes, the outer seal can be broken and the object inside can be taken. Sealing bowl. Never heard of it. Arbor raised his hand to touch the sphere and asked curiously, You mean, there's a real 3-story ship sealed in this sphere? Duanmuqing nodded and looked at the old man with some confusion. This old man was dressed in rags and had a wretched appearance. Who would have thought that once he made a move, he would amaze the world with a single brilliant feat? This priceless sealing ball was very rare. It was also very rare in the Divine Continent, let alone in the Shantian Prefecture. Grandpa, what benefits do you want? Arbor turned around and asked the old man. He was slightly wary. I don't have anything valuable to exchange with you. Bah! The old man couldn't help but want to spit on this child's face. How could he not know the extent of this little fellow's wealth? That was someone who could casually drop a spirit tool, yet here he was complaining about being poor in front of this old man. Arbor raised his hand and touched his little face that wasn't spat on. He squeezed towards Qi Xianxian with a look of disdain. Why are you spitting on me? Don't deny it when I say that you're stingy. The old man blew his beard and glared. This old man may be poor, but I won't go so far as to cheat a child like you. This thing is for you to play with. You don't have to spend money to exchange for it. Oh. Arbor was indifferent. He reached out and kept the ceiling ball back into his inner world. The old man was immediately angered to the point of laughter. Look, this little girl did it on purpose. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.